Faites l'appel, s'il vous plaît, Madame Le Greffier.
Monsieur le Sénateur Farnham.
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Gorse.
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur McLean.
Présent.
Madame le Sénateur Lahegara. Monsieur le Sénateur Binet. Madame le Sénateur Miles. Madame le Sénateur Miller.
Présente.
Monsieur le Sénateur Boliak. Madame le Sénateur Kirsten. Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Marie.
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Brelart.
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Hélier.
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Bouin.
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de la Trinité.
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Grouville.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Sauveur. Madame le Connétable de Saint-Laurent. Madame le député l'abbé.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Tadier. Madame le député Dublé.
Présente.
Madame le député Alves.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Morel. Monsieur le député Voisin.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Andrews. Madame le député Binet.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Coles.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Curtis. Madame le député Curtis. Madame le député Faltham.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le député Jeune.
Présente.
Madame le député Poré.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Renouf. Madame le député Stevenson.
Présente.
Madame le député Ward.
Présente.
Madame le député Wilson.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Carpenter.
Présent.
Madame le député Gleave. Monsieur le député Leck. Madame le député Lee.
Présente.
Madame le député Maltman.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Parker. Monsieur le député Raimondo. Monsieur le député Rebendane. Monsieur le député Romero.
Monsieur le Doyen.
Notre soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait le ciel et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi les gouvernements et les puissances de la terre pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toute leur délibération est accompagnée de ta bénédiction. Réussisse au bien à tout seul chemin du peuple, qu'il t'a plu de commettre à leur soin. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par les mérites de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne. Ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonnons nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous envoie point en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car à toi est le règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Monsieur le député Morel.
Présent.
Les États sont constitués. Today we deal with appointment of ministers, committees and panels. The first item on the order paper is selection of ministers. In accordance with Standing Order 117(2)E, I ask the Chief Minister-designate to read out his declaration.
Thank you, sir. As you say, in line with Standing Order, I'm pleased to make the following nominations. Health and Social Services, Senator Tom Binney. Justice and Home Affairs, Senator Helen Miles. External Relations, Senator Ian Gorst. Social Security, Senator Senator Elaine Miller. Education and Lifelong Learning Deputy Karen Curtis. Environment, Senator Mary Lahegara. Housing, Deputy Malcolm Ferry. International Infrastructure, Deputy Jonathan Renouf. International Development, Deputy Carolyn Labby. Sustainable Economic Development, Deputy Gerald Voisin. Treasury and Resources, Senator Alan McLean. So sorry, I had all the middle names, which I wasn't used to, which threw me a little bit. Hope that will do. Thank you.
Thank you. We now proceed in accordance with the order set out in the declaration, and accordingly the Assembly is due to appoint a new Minister for Health and Social Services. Members will receive the copy of the notice of the Chief Minister's nomination. Chief Minister, would you please like to make your first nomination?
Thank you, sir. I'm very pleased to nominate Senator Tom Binney to continue the work in health. Thank you.
Is the nomination seconded?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? As there are no nominations, I invite Senator Binney to speak for up to 10 minutes, after which there will be a question period of up to 20 minutes. Senator Binney.
Thank you, sir. So I'd like to start by thanking the Chief Minister for nominating me for the job of Minister for Health and Social Services and for the support he's given me in that role throughout the last government. I hope the Assembly will see fit to find its way clear to endorsing that support here this morning. Before explaining what I'd like to achieve in this coming term, in the event that my nomination is accepted by the Assembly, it may be helpful, especially for new members, if I provide a short summary of the work undertaken to date, because a great deal of the forthcoming work will be based on those foundations that have been laid over the past 2 years. When I became Health Minister on the 30th of January 2024, I made it clear that I had much to learn. And having learned quite a lot since, I realised that that is still the case. After all, it's a large and complex service. That said, having reread my introductory speech from that time, it's clear that some progress has been made. I knew then that internal relations were poor within the state section of healthcare, but nothing could have prepared me for just how bad it was. Bullying was also rife. There was a great deal of tension between the state service and the charitable sector, and that was also the case between the service and private GPs. I believe all of these areas have improved, but further improvements are still required. The other key concern was the lack of connectivity between the various sections, both personal and digital. Hopefully, we now have a largely different senior team at HCJ. The culture has definitely improved, with that team and the main clinicians communicating much more positively. And the issue of bullying is finally being dealt with. It took some designing and quite a long time to carry out the required consultation, but we managed to get the partnership board passed through this Assembly just a few months ago. It's important to be clear that it needs further development, and this will be paramount in the coming months. With regard to digitisation, we now have a well-formed digital group comprised of all the right people and a budget of £8 million annually. This should be sufficient to bring us out of the Dickensian age and well into the 21st century. We also have £4 million per year to start implementing measures to prevent illness, and when it does occur, to detect it as early as possible and treat it before it becomes unmanageable. It's great that all of this is now in place, but make no mistake, everything is in its infancy. Aside of this work, I've been the political lead for the new hospital facilities programme now for a full 4 years. As members will probably know, that culminated at the end of the last political term with the signing of a construction contract for the acute hospital at Oakverdale on the last working day before the election. So, what next for the forthcoming political term? If my nomination is accepted, the plan will, in part, be to build on all of the above. Central to almost everything will be the development of the partnership board structure, which I see as being the fulcrum of the entire health service, moving away from a solely government-centric or government-dominated model to one where all participants contribute to improve every patient journey, making it safer, shorter, better, more efficient and more cost-effective. This will involve the creation of numerous subgroups whose job it will be to discuss and resolve the many issues, blockages, gaps and shortcomings that already exist in those specific areas and all those still to come. Some groups exist already, for example, oncology. Some will need slight modification and others to be formed from scratch. In each case, the key issues will run through to the main board where appropriate system-wide action can be taken and where necessary, appropriate change is made. I also intend to change the way that charitable service suppliers are commissioned. Some work has been done in this area, as kindly referenced at our initial sitting by Deputy Phil Romrell, but all health charities need better service provision directives and more security in terms of contract duration. I'll be looking to apply 3-year rolling contracts with regular, mutually agreed service requirement updates. Returning to the work undertaken by HCJ itself, a major focus in this coming term will be the reduction in patient waiting times. The current position is a long way from being acceptable. But just in case anyone's under the illusion that any quick fixes are available, let me assure them they're not. With global recruitment problems, a rapidly ageing population, even more treatments available, and a hospital that loses operating theatre capacity every time we have a heat wave, keeping abreast of current demand whilst undertaking extra work to bring down waiting list times will be a major challenge. With all of that in mind, I'll soon be considering the possibility of recruiting a strategic director whose responsibility it will be to analyse the structure of each department, liaise with the management and clinicians and other health professionals in order to recommend structural and personnel changes wherever appropriate, without the distraction of any other day-to-day commitments. This should help improve efficiency, reduce cost and raise morale in the short, medium and long term, and by extension, help facilitate the reduction in waiting times, which is such a crucial part of what's needed to improve patient care. Amongst the many other areas that will continue to receive full attention is the development of a women's health strategy and eventually one for men too. I'll also be looking to strengthen care in the community and reduce discharge delays. And of course, work will continue on developing a new funding model for healthcare. Looking to the bigger picture again, now that the new acute hospital is underway, our attention must continue to be focused on the development of the other 2 operational sites, Gloucester Street, Kensington Place, and the Health Village at St Saviour's. In my view, these sites will eventually play a crucial role in helping to make our health service an important part of our economy, not just by having service quality that attracts people to stay on the island and to live, work and invest here, but one that facilitates health tourism. Consideration is already being given to the possibility of establishing a local cancer centre, and if successful, other specialities may follow. We're also in the process of forging valuable strategic and operational links with a major hospital group in the UK that will allow for, amongst other things, training exchanges, plus more and better coordinated tertiary care. And that link may contribute to the establishment of a medical school here on the island. In addition, we will continue the current work to establish a major fundraising scheme similar to those currently being run by certain other UK hospitals. In our case, we'll be targeting a sum of £25 million, all of which will be used to help with projects that have been mentioned. I know I've raised a few eyebrows in certain quarters for not having developed a formal health strategy as yet, but the truth is, and as you may have gathered from what's been said so far, we're already in the process of implementing one simply by addressing the many glaringly obvious problems that we confronted from day one and having a positive drive for future developments. There'll be time enough in the next term to gather everything together and articulate it clearly so that the full picture can be seen by anyone who's interested now that we've actually got something positive to tell them. Looking to the future, the vision for this term is very simple. It's to have a first-class, efficient, properly digitised health service ready to move into a first-class hospital building in 4 years' time. I genuinely believe that can be done, and I'm extremely hopeful that I'll be permitted to retain the excellent assistant ministers from the previous term that have proved so helpful in making the progress that we've made so far. I'd like to close by thanking them most sincerely and thanking the very many people throughout all elements of the service who are now working very enthusiastically towards our vision for the future of Jersey's health service. So I hope that members will see fit to permit me to continue to serve a further term as Health Minister. Thank you, sir.
The The chamber remains warm, probably too warm for most of us. We've taken steps to address that, but with perhaps limited success. So members may remove jackets and the like if they so wish. First question is from Deputy Andrews.
Thank you very much, sir. Can the candidate confirm whether he has the full support of the other candidates seeking roles in the Council of Ministers to build the new health village in St Saviour? Thank you, sir.
Senator.
Well, thank you for the question. I'm just trying to think about each individual. I know there's some concern being expressed about the health village. Yes, actually, you're sorry. Yeah, you're quite right. There is some concern, I think, from one member. Thank you very much. And discussions have already started to try and resolve that difference of opinion.
Supplementary.
Yes, please, sir. Will members be seeing any plans be brought forward in the forthcoming budget regarding the health village in St Saviour? Thank you, sir.
Senator.
That's highly likely, but they're not likely to be in the next 12 months. Not likely to be enormous, sir, because we're still at the planning stage.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister agree to keep the issue of ADHD medication prescribing at the top of his priority list? Obviously, this was a scrutiny review from the previous term. And could the Minister advise whether he will be meeting with the primary care body soon and whether this will be one of the topics that would be discussed?
Senator.
Yes, I should probably apologise to the Deputy and to the Assembly for not mentioning ADHD. I knew there'd be a number of things that I would miss. It's not possible to get everything in 10 minutes, but no, this will remain towards the top of the agenda, and I'm very happy to meet GPs on this subject. That would be the intention. I've met them on the subject before, and I certainly intend to continue a dialogue with them so that we can try and get a joint care package to organise with them, because I think that would ease the situation quite considerably. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Minister for that positive response. And I would wonder whether he would consider putting to the primary care body whether any GPs would be directly employed by the Health Department, given the lack of finding this shared care agreement, so that in the short term we can get a solution to the hundreds of islanders who are suffering with this.
Senator.
It's quite a complicated area because I think that the GPs consider that they should make a collective agreement. But I will be putting as much pressure as I can to get a resolution to this.
Deputy Taddeo.
So the state of the current hospital and healthcare was something that very much came up on the doorstep during the election period. Many of my constituents reported that they had long waiting lists, which the Minister's already referred to, and that they felt under pressure, that they were coming under active pressure to go private, especially when they didn't have the money or the insurance to do so. Could the Minister speak to this phenomenon and whether he thinks that's an active policy of the Health Department?
Senator.
Well, I have to make it clear that's certainly not an active policy that I've enacted. It is something that's happening increasingly because people have got the money, aren't prepared to wait. It's a very difficult situation. If we had all the people that we need, all the money that we need, and the facilities that we need, this probably wouldn't be happening. We're not in that position at the moment, so I think we can expect more of that to happen, particularly between now and the completion of the new hospital. So.
Supplementary.
So, would the Minister outline what his vision is for getting that balance right? It seems to me that it's the same consultants doing the private work as the public work, and therefore if people are being encouraged to, being told by a consultant, I can do this in 2 years' time, but if you come to see me privately, I can do it next week, it seems like a highly divisive and unfair practice. What's the Minister's opinion on resolving that issue?
Senator.
Once again, it's not as simple as it first appears. There is a need for private healthcare here, and there is a requirement for the clinicians to retain a balance in the state and private work that they do. You can't simply do away with private work because people wouldn't be attracted to work here. So it's an ongoing situation. There is a balance to be struck, And I know people feel differently sort of ideologically about this, but we just do our best to keep the balance as good as we can. And hopefully I've outlined in my 10-minute speech the actions we're taking to try and improve the entire situation. It is a system-wide problem.
Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. The Senator mentioned in his speech that there was 8 million allocated towards digital within the health service. Can the Senator expand on how this is going to help with links with the GPs, for example, as I know that in some cases fax is still being used and that there isn't necessarily a fully integrated digital system between the hospital and GP practices? Thank you, sir.
Senator.
So the Deputy is quite right about the state of play at the moment. We were assessed on an international rating scale 12 months ago, 15 months ago, and it's a rating of 1 to 7. We came out at 0 in terms of our connectivity between the different departments. The objective over the 4 to 5 years is to get to level 5, 6, which will take us towards the front end of where most places are. We'll be ahead of the game if we can get to that. And work is progressing apace. We've now got a lot of people dedicated to in the tech department to making that happen. We've got a very, very good health digital director, and we've got a digital board or a digital group that reflects all elements of the health service. It's a very well selected group, and we meet monthly, and that's going. I think it's going exceptionally well considering our very more than modest starting point, our appalling starting point. So.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. So this was talked about almost 25 years ago when I first started working for GPs. So can the Senator give us his assurances that this will be made a priority, and what is the timeline that he's looking at to get to that 5 rating? Thank you.
Senator.
I can. This has been one of my pet projects from the time that I arrived, and it would be great to have another 4 years, because the object of the exercise is to have the digitisation fit for the new hospital, as I've made clear. That the objective throughout this term is to have a health service that's worthy of the new building. Otherwise, it's just not worth spending the money to build it. So it will, for as long as I'm here, it will remain a very top priority. So it's vitally important.
Deputy Joan.
Thank you, sir. The Jersey Care Model, introduced in 2020, set out explicit ambition to reduce dependency on secondary care by expanding primary and community services. This was effectively ended in 2020, leaving Jersey without a clear strategic framework for how primary care, particularly GPs, should function within the wider healthcare service. Could the Senator outline his vision for the role of GPs in Jersey's health system, specifically whether he sees GPs as the coordinators of care for islanders with complex or long-term conditions?
Senator.
I regard GPs as a vitally important component of the health service. They're the place where most health journeys start. Relations with them have improved dramatically. I think they're working better within the system than they were. As I say, the whole point of the partnership board is to give everybody a voice in how patient journeys are planned throughout. And I see GPs retaining a very, very important role in that. Their status as private businesses should remain. I think we should be very grateful for the GP services we've got here, and I want to make sure that their position is, if anything, strengthened. So.
Supplementary.
Yes, sir. I was wondering if the Senator could maybe delve into a bit more of the issues that he saw and he faced in the last 2 years related to how GPs worked with that secondary care and also specialists as well. I've myself have come up against barriers where information was not shared between maybe the UK hospital that you're referred to, GP surgery that gets all that information, and then follow-on care at the hospital and consultants themselves, and how he sees that specific way could make that better, that coordination.
Senator.
I have to refer back to digitisation, because that's the one thing that's missing in all of this. People have fallen through the gaps already. We've seen even fairly recent cases of that, where patient care suffers very badly because there isn't a fail-safe system that takes people from one end of the journey to the other. There are gaps, people fall through those gaps, and that's a patient care issue. So I come back to the point of saying that I'll be very, very insistent on trying to make sure that we maintain the budget that we've been promised over the forthcoming term, and it will certainly receive all of my attention.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister please give an update on the situation in neurology, please? Has a consultant been recruited, and if not, when will this happen?
Senator.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but I'm very hopeful that that has been achieved. This very, very early days. I accept we've had problems in neurology, we've had problems in spinal care, and this has basically been down to the difficulties in recruiting people in a market that's very, very short of specialists. And it has to be said that certainly 2 years ago, the island had an extremely bad reputation. Anybody going online to look to come to Jersey would have seen lots of negative headlines about the place. It seems to me that some of those headlines are diminishing. I'm hopeful that the press going forward will bear all of that in mind when they sometimes raise headlines that are very unhelpful and sometimes not terribly accurate, because people from the UK and elsewhere do keep an eye on what's happening here. And those sort of things, careless comment by the media, when it does happen, doesn't actually do us any favours. So I hope they're listening, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. My follow-up was going to be along the lines of the question that Deputy Jearn asked about the communication off-island. And I understand that the Minister is pushing for this digital system, but in the meantime, what meantime improvements can be made, and particularly for those neurological patients who are having difficulties in this area, to improve that communication?
Senator.
I stay fairly close to this because it's an issue of a pretty major concern. But I can only trust to the good people that we've got now trying to do the job. And as I say, from what I can see, they're really using their best endeavours to do everything that they can. In terms of tertiary care, there's a limit to what can be done. To the best of my knowledge, I think some information is still passed in envelopes from here to the UK, which is crazy. But as I've said, I described it as moving from the Dickensian age into the 21st century, and that's the journey that we're on, sir. But it is underway. We've got a very good team of people and a very clear action plan. Thank you.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister, or would the Senator, please explain what he would seek to do to increase often GPs, but also hospitals' rates of diagnoses? Too often I have, my own family and constituents that I meet, suffered because of a slow rate of diagnosis and often dismissive attitude, particularly to women's health matters. And I would like to know what the Senator would do in these areas.
Senator.
Well, actually, if I can give an example, I, along with my assistant ministers, all ended up attending a meeting at the Arts Centre, I think it was, about endometriosis. And it's something I was aware of because a family member had suffered with it. That's what took me along to the meeting. And we've since set up an endometriosis group, and we've got a clinician specifically now available for referrals. It takes a long time to build up a network of communication where people do all the right things. Once again, on the partnership board, which we only just got through by the skin of our teeth, we're going to be building those subgroups that feed into the main board. So all those issues will be tackled. And the whole idea is that those subgroups will work on the patient journey from getting it right at the beginning, shortening the journey, making it more efficient so people come out sooner with better outcomes.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. A lot of the time, this is a case of ensuring that doctors, particularly GPs, actually listen to their patients. There's one case I've heard of just in the past week where a doctor was passing off the patient as having psychological issues when actually the parent, in this case, was pointing out recent foreign travel and the fact that that was a far more likely cause of problems. And indeed, turns out to be the case, and the psychological issues that the doctor was talking about were not there. What will the Senator do to ensure that doctors actually start to listen to their patients in this island, rather than just dismissing them out of hand?
Senator.
Once again, sir, there's a straightforward, simple answer that can be implemented today. I know exactly what the Deputy is talking about when he talks about people being referred for psychiatric care, because the case in my own family, that was exactly what happened. Somebody was in serious trouble, and to add insult to injury, that was what came out. So I'm very, very keen to see that stops. But as I say, once we've got these subgroups established, those sort of problems become known by everybody, and the GPs, through the primary care body, will be responsible for making sure that they communicate that to every single GP. Those are the sort of, that's the reason for having the whole network, so that we can actually send those messages back, and we've got a defined network of information that goes back to every GP. So I can't say it'll be done tomorrow, but it is one of the things that's paramount in our thinking. Thank you.
Deputy Cleave.
Thank you, sir. Would the Senator, I know he already recognises the value of preventative care. One of the things that would really help in the island is a health MOT with simple things like blood tests, which are unfortunately out of pocket for some islanders at the moment, and is one of the commitments that I made on the doorstep to my constituents. Provided we can prove the business case for this and the cost savings for the health service, is this something that the Centre would support?
Senator.
I'd be delighted if we had a system where everybody went for regular MOTs. Being a hypochondriac, it's something I've done every 6 months since the age of 50. But the big worry with that, as I've tried to make plain at various times in the past, is that we haven't yet got a system that can cope with its day-to-day work. And if everybody decided to rock up at the hospital for their regular check or with their GPs, we'd probably be overwhelmed. So what we really need to be doing is getting the system-wide improvements that we want and planning for this so that it can be introduced at an appropriate time once all the infrastructure is in place to be able to cope with it. But in principle, yes, it's a very, very good idea. And hopefully towards the end of the 4-year period, that's something that we can contemplate. Thank you.
Supplementary. Deputy Mortman.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what model is being planned for food provision in the new acute hospital, including whether patient meals will be cooked on-site or supplied from a central production kitchen? Thank you.
Senator.
So there are no plans to do any food preparation of that sort of overall food preparation in the new hospital building. The plan at this point in time is to continue with the facility that we've got, and that's simply because we've got an awful lot going on already, and I think it would probably be overload if we tried to increase that. However, we will be looking at hospital food in the round going forward, because as much as it's acceptable, I think we could perhaps improve that, because I think nutrition in the hospital is an extremely important part of patient care.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. On that, will the Minister be prepared to publish a food and nutrition strategy for the new hospital before design and procurement decisions are made? Thank you.
Senator.
So I don't want to commit to anything specific this morning, other than the fact that I can confirm that it's something that we're looking at and will continue to look at throughout the course of the next 4 years.
Deputy Carpenter.
Thank you, sir. In the last term, the candidate attempted to introduce charges for patients using the emergency department for non-urgent treatment. Does the candidate accept that while this would probably have the desired effect of a reduction in appropriate A&E use, the underlying issue is actually one of affordability, and that for many, GP fees, often in excess of £50 for a short consultation, are the primary driver of this inappropriate A&E use?
Senator.
Well, sir, just a very minor correction. I didn't try and introduce them. I floated the idea and said that it was an issue worth considering. In the end, we decided against it. There's been some recent comment about it because apparently, according to the analysis, there were 9,000 cases that would have been deemed appropriate to go to GPs. However, one of our now retired leading GPs made the comment that that would be a similar figure in the UK because people are not always aware of whether something is sufficiently serious to go to to A&E or to the doctor, so that they usually take the safe option and go to A&E. So it's not a problem that can be entirely resolved. That figure will never be zero. In terms of affordability, I think we're doing everything we can. I think if you're on income support, the cost of going to a GP is £10. Whilst it would be lovely if everybody could have everything for nothing, we have to be mindful of the fact that we're under spending pressure, and these are very, very delicate matters that need to be reconsidered from time to time, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Well, that brings the period of questions to an end. And as there were no other nominations and the speech and period of questions has been completed, I can confirm that Senator Binet has been selected for appointment as Minister for Health and Social Services. Now move on to the new Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Senator Farnham, would you like to make your nomination?
Thank you, sir. I'm very pleased to propose a return to Justice and Home Affairs for the now Senator Helen Miles. Thank you.
Is the nomination seconded?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other nominations? As there are no other nominations, I invite Senator Miles to speak for up to 10 minutes, after which there'll be up to 20 minutes of questions. Senator Miles.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to start by thanking the people of Jersey for giving me the opportunity to be part of this Assembly for a further 4 years. And of course, I also thank the Chief Minister for nominating me for this role. For more than 30 years, I've worked alongside the people who keep Jersey safe. Before entering this Assembly, I worked for Customs and Immigration, the States of Jersey Police, the Probation and Aftercare Service, and in developing justice policy at the centre of government. My career has included operational service delivery, strategic leadership and legislative reform. I developed major pieces of legislation, including the Criminal Procedure Law and the Sexual Offences Law, helping to modernise Jersey's criminal justice system. I then had the privilege of serving as Minister for Justice and Home Affairs between 2022 and 2024. And those experiences have shaped one simple belief: the first duty of any government is to keep its people safe. Justice and Home Affairs is not defined by the departments it oversees, it's defined by the people it protects. And it's about ensuring that every islander can live in safety, that victims receive justice, that vulnerable people are protected, that our borders remain secure, and that when people need help most, they know those entrusted with protecting them will be there. Sir, Jersey enjoys an enviable position as one of the safest places in the world. And that reputation hasn't been achieved through luck, nor is it something we should ever take for granted. It has been earned over many decades through the professionalism of our emergency services, the commitment of our honorary police, the strength of our justice system, and the willingness of our communities to work together. So my commitment is straightforward: to ensure that Jersey remains one of the safest places in the world to live, work, and raise a family. Keeping Jersey safe requires constant vigilance, constant continual improvement, and political leadership that understands both the operational realities and the strategic challenges facing our services. So during my previous time as Minister, I had the privilege of working alongside exceptional public servants. And together we strengthened our focus on prevention through the Building a Safer Community programme, established Jersey's Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force, enhanced our emergency planning and resilience, and progressed important legislation and continued to support the frontline services that protect islanders every single day. Since leaving ministerial office, I've continued to work closely with policing and justice matters through my role on the Jersey Police Authority and as a member of the Children Education and Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel. And those experiences have reinforced rather than changed my thinking. Good public safety depends upon partnership, it depends upon evidence, and it depends upon listening. And it depends upon having the confidence to make difficult decisions when they are needed. Sir, I've spent my working life alongside the people who keep this island safe. I know their professionalism, I know the pressures they face, I know the difficult decisions they make every single day, and above all, I know how deeply they care about Jersey. Every day, our States of Jersey Police, Honorary Police, Customs Immigration Officers, Prison Service, fire and rescue service and emergency planning teams perform difficult and often dangerous work on behalf of every one of us. They respond when others are in crisis. They protect vulnerable people. And they do so with professionalism, courage, and quiet dedication. And they deserve not only our gratitude, but our confidence, our support, and our leadership. I will continue to be their advocate in government, in this Assembly, and indeed during every budget discussion. As Minister for Home Affairs, I will also have responsibility for the Office of the Superintendent Registrar, which continues to modernise and improve its services every year, and for the Health and Safety Inspectorate, which, as we have seen lately, undertakes vital work on behalf of islanders. Both will have my continued support. I will also have the privilege of overseeing the Jersey Field Squadron. We've just concluded Armed Forces Week, and on Saturday we marked Armed Forces Day. And Jersey's links with the Armed Forces are a key part of our constitutional status, and the Field Squadron is a central part of that relationship, and I look forward once again to working with them. So everything we do in justice and home affairs begins with public confidence, and that is why accountability, transparency and fairness matter. Justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. Victims deserve to be heard, and communities deserve confidence that the institutions entrusted with protecting them are worthy of that trust. So the challenges facing justice and home affairs continue to evolve, and these threats demand increasingly specialist skills and new ways of working. Good government is not about pretending these challenges do not exist, nor is it about believing that yesterday's solutions will always solve tomorrow's problems. It's about recognising new risks early, making sensible decisions, and continually strengthening the services upon which islanders depend. And that means investing in people, investing in technology, and investing in training. But it also means that ensuring as much of our resource as possible is directed towards the front line. Our highly trained professionals should spend their time protecting islanders, preventing crime, safeguarding vulnerable people, and keeping our borders secure. And my responsibility as Minister is to ensure that they have the necessary support, the legislation, and the political leadership that they need to do exactly that. I want to pay particular tribute to our Honorary Police. They are one of Jersey's greatest strengths and one of the defining features of island life. They embody something that makes Jersey different. The principle that keeping our island safe is not solely the responsibility of government, it is a responsibility shared by the community itself. They know their parishes, they know their communities, they build trust before problems arise, and they provide reassurance where people need it most. Throughout my career, I've seen at first hand the extraordinary commitment they make, often balancing demanding careers and family life with voluntary public service. And as Minister, I will continue to champion the Honorary Police, support recruitment and retention, and ensure they remain a valued and integral part of Jersey's justice system for generations to come. So the safest communities are not those that simply respond well before something goes wrong. They are communities that work together to prevent harm before it happens. And that philosophy shaped my work long before I entered politics, and it remains at the heart of how I believe justice and home affairs should operate. That is what building a safer community means. It's not simply the name of a programme, it's a way of thinking. We often judge justice and home affairs by the incidents that we see, the number of arrests, the emergencies, the prosecutions. But success for me is just as often measured by what never happens. The child who never becomes a victim, the family who receives support before relationships break down, the young person diverted away from offending, the woman protected from abuse, the emergency that careful planning prevented. Good public protection is often invisible, and that's exactly how it should be, because every offence prevented means one less victim. So, whether safeguarding children, supporting vulnerable adults, or standing alongside victims of abuse, government has a responsibility to act early, to act decisively, and to act compassionately. I was pleased to establish Jersey's Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force, and I commend my successor, Senator Mary Lehegerer for her focus on the recommendations and for the introductions of key legislation to tackle this issue. As the baton is handed back to me, I want to ensure that that work continues to deliver meaningful improvements, supporting victims and survivors, holding perpetrators to account, improving education and awareness, strengthening partnership work across agencies, and ensuring that every woman and girl in Jersey can live free from fear. Success will never be measured by the number of meetings we hold or the number of reports we publish. It will be measured by safer lives. So public safety also extends beyond the prison gates. Our prison service performs an essential role in protecting the public. But if we want fewer victims tomorrow, we have to have fewer offenders tomorrow. And one of the phrases I often used as Minister was that we should strive to release better neighbours. Rehabilitation isn't about lowering expectations, indeed the opposite is true. It's about expecting people to take responsibility for their actions, rebuild their lives and contribute positively to our community. I want the prisons to continue to work closely with probation to promote rehabilitation and reduce reoffending in our community. And I will take my ex officio seat on the probation board and I will actively engage and set out my policy agenda, but I will not seek to bring probation into the Justice and Home Affairs Department. Sir, I look forward to working with ministerial colleagues, with scrutiny and across the community to make our island even safer and a better place for everyone. I ask our members to support my nomination and I look forward to taking questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. First question is from Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. Does the Senator commit to continuing the work that was decided by this Assembly at the end of last term into reviewing the work permit policy to ensure that we are tackling the efforts of modern-day slavery?
Yes, the broad answer of that is yes. There is currently a work permit policy review in hand, and I will be looking closely at the recommendations of that. To me, there is no doubt that our work permit policy needs to change. When it comes to modern slavery, I think we have a migrant safeguarding issue. And one of the things that my predecessor set up was a migrant safeguarding group. And I think that group is going to be highly successful in providing recommendations and protections for our work permit holders.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. Does the Senator also commit to working with, whether it's the new Environment Minister or the new Minister for Planning Regulation, about whether about the inspections around migrant worker accommodation to ensure that it is fit for purpose and up to standards?
Senator.
Thank you. Yes, most certainly. Certainly in the 80s when I was administrating work permits as my very first role in government, there was a total inspection regime and accommodation was inspected, and if it was not fit for purpose then the employer would not have the work permit. And I think after the tragedy that we did see in Grouville, it is incumbent on everybody in this Assembly to work together to make sure that our work permit holders are suitably protected through safe and appropriate accommodation.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. Sir, the work of the Home Affairs Department extends to immigration and the policing of our borders. I would like to understand, because I don't think a great deal was said in that speech about this area, but I would like to understand the Minister's approach to Jersey being pulled further and further from our nearest neighbours in terms of being seen constantly as the southern border to the United Kingdom, which we are not. The United Kingdom's southern border is the southern border to the United Kingdom. We are Jersey's border. And I would like to just ask the Minister if she could explain her approach to this area.
Senator.
Thank you. As the Deputy will know, we are bound by the Immigration Act and the Nationality Act as extended to Jersey. And we are part of the Common Travel Area. Jersey does not have its own immigration law and it does not have its own nationality law. So for immigration purposes, we are at the mercy of the UK government. One thing that I would like to consider during this 4-year term is the possible development of Jersey's own immigration law so that it provides a framework whereby changes to the Nationality Act or the Immigration Act that would benefit Jersey, both in economic terms and in heritage and cultural terms, might be useful. The Deputy will also know that during my last term as Minister, I made the bold decision to permit French nationals to come here on carte d'identité. That is outside the policies of the UK. So I am always willing to consider and take a risk-based approach as to where Jersey may provide better services for its own economy.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. With regard to such things as the ESTAs and the ETAs, and I forget or the EES, I forget all the abbreviations that are used, which hinder travel between here and our nearest neighbours. Could the, and indeed the ID cards, which allow French citizens to come here for 24 hours, could the Senator please explain whether she would seek to gain some sort of respite from those restrictions, and also with regard to those ID cards, whether she'd seek to extend their provision for the amount of time spent in Jersey?
Senator.
There's two questions there. Obviously, the ETA and the ESTAs refer to British passport holders, and I can't see that Jersey would. Jersey hold British passports. They may be issued by the Bailiwick of Jersey, but they are British passports. And I would think it extremely unlikely that Jersey could have any sort of carve-out from ETAs and ESTAs if you have a British passport. When it comes to the carte d'identité, I do think there is some possibility of stretching that a little bit. Certainly the hospitality industry have said on many occasions that they would like to see an overnight potential for a 48-hour system. Again, all of that has to be risk-based and it has to be risk-assessed properly, because like it or not, we are the southern border of the common travel area, and we do have to be very careful that we are protecting the borders to the satisfaction of the United Kingdom government.
Deputy Joan.
Thank you, sir. In the last government, the former Minister for Justice and Home Affairs said that there was not enough budget and time from officers to be able to develop the hate crime legislation. Could the Senator explain what she would like to do related to the hate crime legislation?
Thank you. Yes, I think there was insufficient time. I think I was actually the minister that withdrew the hate crime law because there was an opportunity to watch and wait and see what had happened in other parts of the United Kingdom. To the best of my knowledge, the consultation for the hate crime law is ready to go, and I would certainly support that consultation going forward. I've said on a couple of occasions, I am not a fan of legislation for legislation's sake. My area of academic interest is in formal justice, and I would far rather people be motivated to behave properly without law. However, I think what we have seen over the last few years tends me to suggest that there are elements that need to be legislated for so people can be properly brought to account and punished for it takes us. And of course, it will be subject to further policy development, legislative development and scrutiny.
Supplementary?
Yes, so thank you. And I did speak of this in the last Assembly, to the Assembly, about the concerns of some of my constituents who had experienced some hate crime, but the police were unable to take that further. As the Senator said, there may be not a legislation specifically, but focusing on specific areas. How will she be working with the police with this to ensure the police have the right tools to be able to take any hate crime forward and to help support those victims?
Senator.
I think it's my understanding that as we stand, the State of Jersey Police have all the tools that they can possibly have on an informed basis outside of legislation in order to take those complaints forward. But there are areas whereby they can sympathise and support victims, but they have actually no teeth in legislation to be able to put that forward to the Law Officers Department for prosecution.
Deputy Tadia.
The proceedings of this Assembly have been publicly available via webcast since 2016. Does the minister, prospective minister, believe that when it comes to the transparency of the courts, that public proceedings in our courts should also be televised, live streamed? If not, why not? And if so, what's her vision for that?
Senator.
I think the purview of the courts is the area for the bailiff to address. As Home Affairs Minister, I have influence over legislation, but the operation of the courts remains clearly with the court. I know that hearings are held in public unless the judge orders otherwise for very specific reasons. I have no strong views about the televisation of proceedings, but it is clearly a matter for the court, not for the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs.
Supplementary?
Yeah, I think I'm slightly surprised by the answer. The second part of her perspective of her title will be justice, not just home affairs. And we know that a few years ago, justice was brought to a certain extent under the purview of the Chief Minister then, and it will be now delegated to her department. It would seem to me natural that there does need to be some ministerial input in the right way, respecting the separation of powers. And does she not agree that if one branch of the government is subject to its public proceedings being streamed in the 21st century, that there's no reason logically that the courts should shy away from that level of probity as well?
Senator.
Thank you. I refer to my previous answer. The proceedings in the court are the purview of the court. As Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, I will sit on the Criminal Justice Strategic Board, and that is an issue that could be raised at that level. But notwithstanding the separation, what happens in the court is within the purview of the court, not under the influence of the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. The Senator highlighted in her speech the need to invest in technology. To what extent does she see that digital transformation and innovation is needed within the functions that are under her to deliver the best services for the public and the most effective delivery of their work?
Senator.
I could talk about this for ages. Having had conversations not only with Customs and Immigration but also the States of Jersey Police, it's critical that they have the same level of technology available to them as the offenders that they're seeking to investigate. And of course, everybody knows now everybody has a mobile phone, every offender has a mobile phone. This Assembly has already allocated many millions to the States of Jersey Police to their digital forensic unit, and I think we need to keep a close eye on that funding to make sure that they have the tools that they need. I think also we've got artificial intelligence coming down the road, and I think a lot of our processes are still overly paper-based, where potentially there is an opportunity to modernise and reduce bureaucracy through using technology.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. I think the candidate touched on one area, which is customs, whose responsibility does cover imports and GST, and I think it's widely known that these impact the cost of business and red tape in Jersey with systems such as CSER. Does she then see a need to invest in those, and how will she work with other ministers to ensure that her digital functions support any wider council ambition on digital improvements to support islanders and businesses?
If anybody's tried to clear anything through CSER, whether it's a pair of shoes or a pallet full of commercial goods, it is probably one of the most user-unfriendly systems that you would ever come across, and it was something that I was in discussions of previously when I was Minister. As Minister, in a slightly unusual position, because obviously it's about duty collection, so that falls to Treasury. So I would need to have some significant conversations with the Treasury Minister. There is no doubt that CSER is not fit for purpose. It doesn't have accessibility features. Anybody who's done business here will say how unwieldy it is, and it does need some funding and some focus to see how that can be improved, significantly improved.
Deputy Gleave.
Thank you, sir. I was encouraged by the Senator's comments about the need to reduce the level of reoffending by supporting prisoners. I think there's been some really good work in the last term between the police service and adult mental health. However, I'm still hearing quite concerning things through the mental health charities and mental illness charities about their level of access to the prison and the support that those who do have mental health problems within the prison are supported. Would the Minister care to comment?
Senator.
The provision of health services in the prison has slowly been transitioned to the Minister for Health and Social Services. So any support into the prison would involve my discussing that with him, which I am more than prepared to do.
Supplementary.
Would the Minister commit to that discussion with the Social Services Minister and also the charities to hear their concerns?
Senator.
Yes, thank you. Certainly, charities have approached me as well, but again, I am more than happy to have that conversation at the earliest possible opportunity.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. Picking up the theme of technology once more, some jurisdictions, including the United Kingdom, have been rolling out the use of facial recognition technologies in the streets and elsewhere. Could the Senator please explain her position on these technologies within Jersey?
Senator. I'm a minister that isn't supportive of intense supervision by by CCTV or facial recognition. However, I do recognise that there is a role for that technology on a risk-assessed basis in order to protect our community. To the best of my knowledge, we do not have facial recognition CCTV available in public places. That may not be the case at the airport or the docks, of that I'm not sure. But I wouldn't want to see facial recognition software widely applied over the island of Jersey. I don't see it as a need at this particular point in time.
Supplementary.
Given that the Senator started her speech by talking about just how safe Jersey is, it would seem in my mind that such technologies would be overstep. Could the could the Senator please explain what she would do to ensure that Jersey does not go down that road of being a police state, being over-policed for a very safe and, in the main, law-abiding society? Because it's always very tempting for the police just to get their hands on the next piece of equipment that is available in the USA, for instance.
Senator.
I think to answer that question, I have to use the word balance. We have to take into account that we are a very safe community. And actually, we probably have more people per capita who enforce the law in Jersey as a result of our honorary police than other communities have. I am not a supporter of the Big Brother approach, and certainly as Minister, I will be having very close discussions about technology and accoutrements that are necessary for our States of Jersey Police.
Deputy Tadia.
So I don't believe Deputy...
well, if you don't mind not asking a question, there are other members on my list who haven't had a question yet,
Yeah,
so I'll
that's
go
right.
to them. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. And I want to follow up on the hate crime legislation. Would the Minister agree to meet with leaders of the LGBTQ plus community, and where anecdotally we're experiencing increased hate, and this is very much something that needs a hate crime legislation put in place as soon as possible?
Senator.
Yes, of course, I can give the Deputy that absolute clarification that I will meet with them as soon as possible.
Supplementary.
Thank you. And the Minister mentioned VOG in her speech, and I know she's a big supporter of tackling this. Will she be continuing the VOG task force, and will there be LGBTQ plus voices on that task force going forwards?
Senator.
The task force was established for a particular reason, and although I need to have discussions with officers, I'm not minded to continue the task force in its current form, i.e. as a task force. I think what we have is the recommendations, we have an implementation plan, and what I would like to see is that those recommendations are fed into the mainstream of the Building a Safer Community framework, because that is the framework that we have for community safety in Jersey.
Donald Harbison-Hellier.
Thank you, sir. The candidate is aware that Jersey residents with settled status have reportedly been refused boarding or been led to purchase special authorization form. What this candidate is planning to do to stop the situation happening again?
Senator.
I thank the Connotar for the question, and certainly when I was campaigning in town, it was something that a lot of Polish and Romanian nationals spoke to me about. There has clearly something gone very wrong with the communication between Jersey and the United Kingdom over the status of settled status. And I think it's not acceptable, but I think we have to acknowledge that it's not specifically a Jersey problem. It is clearly a problem with the Home Office. So my approach to tackling that would be to have very direct conversations with the Home Office, but also to do something from a Jersey perspective, so that when people are stuck in far-flung places in queues, that actually the information is readily accessible to the airline companies who are refusing them access to board.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Sure, the candidate also aware that the residents were pushed to purchase ETA tourist authorization, but as we know, it's not the right document to access CTA. This authorization will be expired in another 6 months, and it's likely that our residents might be refused to enter back. How the candidate is going to rectify, because 6 months will be expiring in the next 2-3 months, and this we can face this situation imminently.
Senator.
Thank you. It is. I'm kind of in two minds about that, because actually obtaining an ETA was a very pragmatic solution to get you onto the plane. And you were entitled to one if you held the appropriate passport. But I do take the point that there may be a problem, and again, that is for the Immigration Department to liaise with the Home Office in fairly short order to make sure that these issues do not happen again for our citizens. And I do wonder whether there needs to be an information, not only an information campaign, but an information drop and a letter potentially to the people that have been issued settled status in Jersey to encourage them to contact the Immigration Department so that support can be given where necessary.
Thank you, Senator. The period of questions has come to an end, and as there were no other nominations and the period for speech and questions has been completed, I can confirm that Senator Miles has been selected for appointment as the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. I'll move on to the selection of the Minister for External Relations. Senator Farnham, would you like to make your nomination?
Thank you, sir. I'd like to nominate Senator Ian Gorst to continue his work, sir, at External Relations. Thank you.
Are there any, is the nomination seconded?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other nominations? There are no other nominations. I invite Senator Gorst to speak for up to 10 minutes, after which there will be questions for up to 20 minutes. Senator Gorst.
Thank you, sir. In 2024, I opened my nomination speech for this office by saying that today the international outlook looks more complex and uncertain than ever. That remains true, and even more so 2 years later. In uncertain times, maintaining Jersey's international reputation as a stable, outward-looking and tolerant island is of critical importance. The confident, robust and successful representation of Jersey on the international stage is fundamental to Jersey's success, underpinning the jobs and growth that sustain our prosperity and quality of life. We need to stand up for our economy, defend our autonomy and promote our identity. This requires experience, knowledge and good international networks, which I have built working with colleagues over many years of representing our island. The role of Minister for External Relations requires a carefully balanced mixture of diplomacy, tact and mettle. It requires the ability to build and sustain relationships with political leaders and officials worldwide. The success of those relationships is critical to the success of our island as a whole. I've shown that I will stand up for Jersey against threats and intimidation. I will continue to do so against any challenges to our constitutional autonomy, our economic freedoms, and our right to self-government. We must protect Jersey's core interests and promote new opportunities for growth and collaboration with our international partners. be it new economic and business links, cultural exchanges, addressing labour shortages, tackling international crime, and responding to climate change, to name but a few. Working concurrently with the Chief Minister, I will use my knowledge and experience to help ministers to deliver on their domestic priorities, and where necessary to find the right international partners, to be that on housing, improving our education system, supporting young people, improving our health and care services, or tackling the cost of living. There is much more we can do, working with our sports teams to grow diplomatic ties, supporting our twinning associations to strengthen our regional ties. I will do so by maintaining and building on our key partnerships in the UK, Europe, and around the world. We will also continue to support states members in their work through the APF, BIPA, and CPA. We live in an ever-changing world, and one that is unfortunately more dangerous and less stable. In the coming weeks or months, the UK will have a new Prime Minister. There will be new relationships to forge and a need to ensure we maintain and build on our existing strong relations with our most important partner. We have excellent access to UK ministers, parliamentarians and officials with real influence on the policy that will affect our island. I have made our voice heard in Westminster, in Whitehall and in Downing Street. Our relationship with the UK is as strong as it has ever been, and I will build on that, working of course with my colleagues, many of whom have their own extensive networks to call upon in the island's interests. Similarly, we will continue to build our links in France. We have worked hard with colleague ministers in the post-Brexit world to rebuild our relationship with Normandy, Brittany and Paris. I have had more ministerial meetings in Paris than any previous Jersey minister. But that relationship must continue to be strengthened together with countries such as Portugal, Poland and Romania, and with the EU institutions in Brussels, to ensure that Jersey's voice is heard as the post-Brexit world continues to take shape. But with Western democracies under pressure, and with the ongoing tragedy of wars in Europe and the Middle East, the one certainty continues to be that there will be significant turbulence and change ahead, which Jersey cannot ignore. In the current climate, the island can benefit from being a reliable and trusted partner, one where investors can be confident of stability. The core of our economy and our ability to pursue global partnerships all rely on the strength of our international standing and confidence in our island. We have a developing network of bilateral tax and investment agreements with countries and markets across the globe, and I will negotiate more of these agreements over the coming years. I will also help position the island to obtain maximum benefit from the participation in the UK's network of free trade agreements covering goods and services, having negotiated our inclusion for services in the GCC agreement as a particularly important first. And we will continue to play an important part in implementing the UK sanctions regime following Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. Jersey cannot ignore what is happening around us, be that tougher global competition, the adoption of AI, or threats to stability. In a turbulent world, investors will be looking for responsible, stable, and trusted markets for investments and for jurisdictions which are clear on the values they promote and protect. That is where Jersey must continue to come into its own. In conducting my role as Minister for External Relations, I will continue to represent all our industries, financial and professional services, digital, dairy, agriculture and fisheries, tourism and hospitality, and stand up for their interests. And I will encourage new diversification which brings jobs and investment. The Time to Win report is clear about what we must do to confidently face the future. Strong foundations are in place, and we carry our reputation for stability with pride, but competition from new rivals is clear, as is the effect of emerging technologies which are rewiring how business is done how we work and where we work. Capital and talent can move more freely than ever before. In short, the world in which we operate has turned on its head. I am absolutely determined that we won't fall behind, but that we will change and continue to win on behalf of all islanders. We have, of course, already been making progress. We have made core reforms to companies law, to the trusts and limited partnerships law, and enhancements to private funds. We've seen an increase of 10% of new private funds, changes to prospectuses, civil penalties, and the sound business policy regime. And we've already reduced the control of borrowing framework prior to its full repeal later this year. I've asked Jersey Finance and the JFSC and our CEO to provide the new government and with their proposals to implement the 5 imperatives for competitiveness and growth, and they are renewing our appetite for growth, reducing regulatory costs and complexity, leading in tokenisation, embracing digitalisation, and investing in Jersey, our infrastructure, connectivity, and our people. So I stood on a platform of continuing in this job, and I am grateful to islanders for giving me their support to do so. By continuing to promote the island abroad and by standing up for our interests, we will create the basis for the change we must make to maintain a competitive and growing economy at home. The world appears to be in turmoil, but I remain optimistic about how we can navigate that uncertainty. By working together, maintaining our strong foundations, and taking the steps to improve our competitiveness, I am convinced we can have a successful future. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We now move to a period of questions. Are there any questions for Senator Gorse? Deputy Chair.
Thank you, sir. Jersey published its report on the potential of offshore wind energy in November 25, setting out technical, commercial, and economic assessments. And it mentioned that we cannot viably export energy unless we have access. Could the Senator tell the Assembly whether active diplomatic discussions on market access for offshore wind energy are ongoing with the UK and France, and what steps he intends to take to advance those negotiations so that Jersey can move from assessment to decision?
Senator.
Sorry, sir. Thank you for that question. Yes, in short, they are. Of course, the connectivity problem is not just a physical problem, it is also a regulatory problem. If we are to build an offshore wind farm, that offshore wind farm would need to be regulated, and we have some difficult questions to consider, and they do roll into the constitutional arena, because who is going to regulate it? And the jurisdiction to which we would connect would want to either know that we had equal regulation or be involved themselves in the regulation. So I have personally spoken to UK government ministers about this. I've also spoken to colleagues in France about this. I think sometimes there can be a little bit of a competition between those two jurisdictions. So when one says, yes, we think it's possible, the other one then comes and thinks, well, actually, we might like that energy and it's possible as well. Of course, we know in relationship to France, the energy market is governed by the EU, and therefore the UK's reset would be critical, not just around regulation if it were to be France, but also around the energy market per se.
Supplementary?
Yes, and thank the Senator for a detailed answer. Could the Senator set out where he sees a realistic timetable for the Council of Ministers to make an informed decision about this, or is this another area where we talk about offshore wind energy but actually never get to the point of making any decisions on whether we will go ahead or not?
Senator.
So that's rather out of our hands. We will continue to have those conversations. We will continue to make the case. Why is it important that we make the case? It's important that we make the case so that the island can make an informed decision about what's involved and what the financial benefit is to Jersey, or the economic benefit, which, as my former colleague used to absolutely say, that's at the core of this decision-making process. And the reason I can't give a timeline, of course, is, as the Deputy knows, and as I alluded to in my opening comments, we're about to see change in the United Kingdom. We don't know whether that will be a change at the Department of Energy and Net Zero or not yet, but in all likelihood there will be changes. And we also know that France is running up to its presidential elections as well. So some of the decision-making with our counterparts could be slowed down.
Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. Jersey currently holds a number of double taxation agreements with various countries across Europe and the world. Unfortunately, Portugal is not one of them. In the last term, I met with the Senator with a number of different Portuguese delegates, and this was raised a number of times. Can the Senator outline what he will do to support a double taxation agreement with Portugal going forward, and how soon he thinks this could be done? Thank you.
Senator.
So I thank the Deputy for the question. It would, in my mind, be excellent if we could get a double taxation agreement with a European member state. We know for all of the reasons that we've not been able to get one previously. I visited Lisbon just prior to the election. I think it was a fortnight or so before the election process started, to talk about, in that instance, two things. One was the tax blacklist, which he will also be aware of, and the other was the double taxation agreement. I met with Minister of Finance there. It's fair to say those conversations were, how can one describe it? We both articulated our point of view, sir. We left with a process around the tax blacklist, but the process for negotiating a double taxation agreement was less clear, but I am absolutely committed to continuing that. If I revert, though, to double taxation agreements with EU member states more broadly, I think the most progress and where we've been received most warmly is in regard to Romania. As members know, it's a sadness that that member that was most closely associated with that work is no longer in this assembly, but I have spoken to her and she wishes to carry on supporting our work in the department to deliver that, and I think that that is probably our best chance at this stage.
Supplementary?
Yes, please, sir. As the Senator knows, Madeira does have a level of autonomy as well. Can the Senator outline whether any discussions have been had with Madeira in particular, given that a significant proportion of our Portuguese community actually come from Madeira and often return there on retirement? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Last time I had the conversation with a member of the Madeiran government, it was confirmed to me that they wouldn't be in a position to have the authority to sign a DTA. If their autonomy has been enhanced or strengthened, then I will certainly reach out and start those conversations.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I'd be grateful if the Senator would express his views on the trade and cooperation agreement signed by the United Kingdom and the European Union with regard to Jersey, and whether he believes it is a satisfactory settlement for Jersey or not, and would he please explain his answer?
Senator.
So the Deputy knows very well that we did not have a vote in the Brexit referendum. We fought hard to not be further disadvantaged. The United Kingdom Prime Ministers had different approaches about what was in the UK's interest. For my part, having accepted the Brexit referendum, which, because of our constitutional position, we had to, it would have been far better for Jersey to be in a customs arrangement with the EU because of all of the friction that we've seen would cease to exist. And that is what we are trying to do now in supporting the UK government with their reset around the SPS agreement, around the youth experience scheme, and around energy. So we are now in slow time having to unravel the friction that Brexit caused, which was not at all in Jersey's interest.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. As I'm sure the Centre is aware, Northern Ireland now benefits from the situation that Jersey had before the Brexit arrangements were put in place, in that it is within the European Union for goods, which is where Jersey was previously. Could, given that the Senator has just said that the conditions are not satisfactory, could he explain to the Assembly what he will do to ensure that Jersey does get a settlement that is in its interests and that removes that friction at the borders for our goods?
Senator.
So, of course, the Deputy knows that the situation in Northern Ireland is not actually equivalent to the situation that Jersey had under Protocol 3. And there are arguments in Northern Ireland which are very live about where the border actually is. Is it down the North Sea? What's happening on the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland? And we also know, of course, that special dispensation was to a large extent, provided to Northern Ireland because of the Troubles. And I, for one, think that every member of this Assembly would think that special dispensation should be given so that those Troubles don't repeat themselves. The actual actions that I am taking, and I have been very strong, not only in London, but also importantly in Brussels, is ensuring that we are part of the reset that the UK is seeking to deliver. We've made that absolutely clear to senior officials and to commissioners in Brussels. We've made it absolutely clear to cabinet ministers and cabinet office ministers. In fact, I've been making the case for the youth experience scheme when UK ministers have been sitting in front of me saying it's virtually impossible. But I've been able to triangulate from what's been told me and what I've been told in Brussels about what the European position is to what the UK needs to do, because that's in Jersey's interest. That is our best hope of removing the friction that we currently experience, in my view.
Deputy Carpenter.
Thank you, sir. As the candidate will know, the Jersey Finance Time to Win action plan highlighted within its implementation path multiple changes that could occur prior to the election, including streamlining KYC processes and allocating responsibility for KYC tool selection to Digital Jersey. Could the candidate please confirm whether these changes have been implemented?
Senator.
So many of them have. If I just pick up the Digital Jersey point, I know that the, I think it's the director or the CEO of Digital Jersey, emailed me only at the weekend to give me an update on where they were and what has been agreed, but I haven't, members will understand, I've been concentrating on preparing for this morning, so I haven't got the details of it, but I know that good progress in that regard is also being made.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, sir. Could the candidate please spell out which of the report's recommendations he will seek to prioritise during his first year as Minister?
Well, so of course, as the Deputy knows, the first part of forming the government is taking place today and tomorrow. The next job of the government is sorting out its common strategic priority, as well as sorting out a budget, neither of which tasks are necessarily straightforward, as we all know. But I am going to be making the case, and I'm hopeful from what I've heard on the election hustings roadshow, that all ministers will support the delivery of the Time to Win programme as a priority in the common strategic priority, and that's the thing that I'll be arguing for.
Deputy Lee.
Thank you, sir. Jersey's fintech and digital finance ambitions depend on a local skills base. How is the Minister going to link the financial service strategy to education and training So the talent pipeline is grown here, not just imported. Thank you.
Senator.
So the Deputy asks a good question, which I think in theory we as an Assembly and as a community understand. The effects of technology and AI upon us as individual islanders, but also right across our economy, is going to be fundamental over the course of the next 4 years. What I don't think is necessarily fully worked out, or that we have a roadmap for, is how we are going to upskill, reskill those islanders whose jobs are going to be affected, and more importantly, how are we going to cross-skill when those people come to Jersey who've got AI skills. We do have some really first-class firms in Jersey doing AI and providing agentic AI support services to other businesses. We have some senior lawyers who are running AI provision for Magic Circle firms. So I think we've got a really exciting opportunity, but that won't just be the minister responsible for the economy or financial services. It will have to be right across government, because the challenges we face are affecting all of our economy, whether that's AI or it's the cost of bureaucracy, and therefore we need to fight them and deliver a plan in partnership. And I look forward to working with the new Education Minister, particularly in regard to skills and training, and the scrutiny panel that will be making sure that we actually act upon it as well. Thank you.
Supplementary? Conor St John.
Thank you, sir. So I was pleased to hear the candidate speak about the importance of both sport and twinning when it comes to relationships. Sir, actions speak louder than words. So could I ask what the candidate will do differently this term to ensure that both sport and twinning are given the support they deserve? Thank you.
Senator.
Thank you, sir. A fair question. And firstly, when it comes to sport, I think that one of my assistant ministers will need to be allocated to attend sporting events and to liaise with sporting organisations. What I found in the last term was that we had international teams either visiting the island, and I was already booked, or Jersey teams were going across the globe to ventures, and we in government weren't supporting them and tying it in with that diplomatic opportunity. And therefore, I think the allocation of someone, either within my department or the assistant minister responsible for sport, we have to move away from this idea that everything just happens in Jersey. Yes, of course, it's easy to get to the events when they're happening in Jersey, and we haven't done as much as we should then. But if these events are happening around the globe, we should proudly be supporting our sports teams and travelling with them and building diplomatic ties where they are taking part, and not always be just worrying that how it will look in the media. When it comes to twinning, I've got to say, sir, and I know the Constable will understand this, I take great care in treading on what I think is something that belongs very much to the parish and to the municipality and to those committees. But having spoken to at least one Twinning Association chair over the last week, the indication there was that it would be quite welcome that we supported. That might be officials, it might be ministers, and also, importantly, of course, meeting those French mayors as well, when either they're on island or we can travel with those. So I'm not seeking, by suggesting that, to say that government knows best or should do everything. Rather, we should be making ourselves available as a supporting presence as and when the parish twinning associations desire it.
Supplementary? Deputy Joan.
Thank you, sir. Jersey's Sustainable Finance Action Plan was published in November 24, 10 specific action points and a delivery timetable running to 2026. can the senator say if the action plan is on time, and what would he do differently to ensure that all those action points are delivered as soon as possible if they're not on time?
Senator.
So I did have some statistics in my paperwork, but I seem to have mislaid them. I think basically good progress has been made. 50%, I think, have been implemented. 40% have been put into, in effect, business as usual, and the 10% around legislating for disclosure is still open to discussion. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. And part of this action plan, there was no mechanism to be able to see the progress. So I was wondering if the minister would be commit to publishing a public progress report so we could actually see the details, and especially about those business as usual, the ones that have been integrated so that they don't get lost within business as usual, but actually you can see that there is progress for sustainable finance in Jersey.
Senator.
Thank you. I thank the Deputy for the length of her question because it's allowed me to turn to the right page. The 40% of actions that have moved into business as usual are around environmental crime, data, international engagement and market access. I will certainly double check if we haven't published a progress report, if we could do one quite easily, then I'm all in favour of it. Thank you.
Deputy Morrell.
Thank you, sir. And very quickly, what will the Senator do to ensure that the work of external relations and the relationships that are built up are shared amongst the Assembly, particularly in terms of succession planning, sir? Relationships which only exist within government mean that they cannot be continued when there is change of ministers.
Senator.
So I know I'm getting old. I didn't know it was quite that obvious to the Deputy, but obviously it is. But he makes a very good point, which has been on my mind throughout this election period, actually. If one looks around the Assembly, dare I say, sir, we're in the majority of a certain age, and we're not going to be here indefinitely. And yet it's something that in the political realm, it's not always straightforward to mentor and support those people starting out. So it is something that I am very mindful of and I will be aiming to do throughout the course of the next 4 years. Of course, I also alluded in my opening comments about working with the APF, working with BIPA, working with
We've
CPA.
had the 20 minutes now. Don't bring this to an end.
Thank you, sir. To support the very issue that the Deputy is referring to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. That brings the period of questions to an end, and I can confirm that Senator Galls has been selected for appointment as Minister for External Relations. I'll move on to Minister for Social Security. Senator Farnham, would you wish to make your nomination?
Yes, sir. I'm very pleased to nominate former Treasury Minister and former Social Security Minister for the role of Social Security Minister in the next government, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Is the nomination seconded?
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? There are no other nominations, so I invite Senator Miller to speak for up to 10 minutes, after which there'll be up to 20 minutes of questions. Senator Miller.
Thank you, sir. So firstly, I would like to thank the Chief Minister for his nomination of me as Minister for Social Security. I held that role from July 2022 until January 24 and will be very pleased to return to that portfolio. In its broadest sense, Social Security, with its associated responsibilities, is one of our most important departments. We often talk about frontline services. Social Security is very much a frontline service and is no less important than the ones that normally fall into that bracket, like health, education and the emergency services. It provides benefits and pensions to thousands of people every year, and the team there deal with dozens of islanders every day. The department pays pensions to our older citizens and a wide range of benefits, from short-term sick pay to long-term incapacity, benefits on bereavement or on the birth of a child, Pension Plus and the community cost bonus. It helps people with the cost of GP visits and prescriptions and deals with student finance. Income support helps those on low incomes with the cost of living in our island. The department receives social security contributions and carries out a range of administrative functions. Social security, income support and the related benefits provide an essential safety net for many islanders at all times of their lives. Is it perfect? Everyone will have different ideas, but probably not. No system that serves so many people will get it right every time, although that should always be our intention. We need to think constantly about the gaps, look at where things are not working and how to address them. That may include services and practical support or changes to laws rather than just financial benefits. We always need to pay attention to how we communicate and make it clear and consistent. Sir, if appointed as Social Security Minister, my priorities will be firstly ensuring that our systems continue to provide effective and targeted support to islanders who need it most with the cost of living and in day-to-day living generally. In reviewing the long-term funding of all our social security funds, including the Health Insurance Fund and the Long-Term Care Fund, considering aspects of social security contributions to ensure they operate effectively, recognise those who have a full contribution record and do not hinder the growth of new business. Next, implementing a secondary pension savings scheme, completing the Transform IT programme, and ensuring that stakeholders are appropriately consulted in all areas relevant to them. Social security is at the forefront of providing help to islanders with the cost of living. It's important that we continue to support the households that struggle most with the cost of living, and I will aim to do that in a way that ensures help is targeted where it is most needed. I will also work with stakeholders to understand what those needs are and find the most effective way of providing support. Previously, I heard concerns in this Assembly about the cost of GP visits and took action to reduce the cost of going to see the GP. I heard the voice of pensioners and increased access to Pension Plus benefit. And also to deal with cost of living, I doubled the community cost bonus, which remains at that level now. We know that one of the biggest costs facing families is childcare, and I will continue the work to see how we can provide more help with that cost. If that enables parents to return to work themselves, it benefits the family and our economy. I would also like to investigate replacing child tax allowances with a similar benefit payment, which will increase visibility and ensure that funds are focused on children. That, of course, may be controversial, and the key word here is investigate. The Minister is also responsible for setting the minimum wage. The Employment Forum is currently consulting on the next increase, and I will take their views into account carefully in proposing the next increase to the minimum wage. During this term, we as an Assembly have to make some big decisions about social security and its funds. The previous Minister has instructed the regular actuarial reviews of the social security funds, the Health Insurance Fund and the Long-Term Care Fund. Overall, the social security funds are very healthy. Once we have the actuarial reports, we will have to consider the future funding of the social security funds and how that will work into the future, because we can't just think about how we pay benefits and pensions today. We have to think about the long term and ensure fairness for today's younger generations as they reach older age. We know that the Health Insurance Fund now pays for much more than was originally intended, with more funding to help with the cost of GP visits and payment of prescription costs, and that has caused it to diminish. It doesn't make sense for government's relationship with doctors and pharmacists and primary care funding to sit in social security while secondary care sits in health, and I would support primary care and its funding moving to the Health Department. That will allow a unified strategy for our overall healthcare system and for funding to be harmonised and centralised as part of the future funding model for health. I will be very happy to work with the Minister for Health and his team and all relevant stakeholders to ensure that funding for primary care continues in a way that supports islanders best. There are, of course, numerous ways in which primary care can be funded, and it is important that we consider those options carefully to ensure a sustainable model is identified. We know also that there are concerns with the payment of social security contributions. While we have a contribution period of 47 years, there are people who have a full record, but because they are still in work, they are still paying contributions, which they feel is unfair. This is one aspect that I would like to review once we have the actuarial reports. The 47-year period itself may benefit from review, but we have to remember that contributions pay for pensions, and most of us are living for significantly longer than previous generations did when pensions were introduced. Another aspect is the way we calculate contributions. It cannot be right with modern record keeping that we calculate a person's contributions on the basis of their earnings 2 years ago. This in particular can hinder entrepreneurs who may be asked to pay contributions based on a salary they no longer have. So I will be reviewing the Business Startup Scheme for Social Security to ensure that it operates effectively and does not restrict creativity, innovation and economic growth by limiting new business. We also need to seek the views of stakeholders in the business community. In long-term care, we have a benefit system that supports many older islanders, enabling them to obtain the care they need, whether that's in their own home or in a care home. It's likely that long-term care contributions will require review once we have the actuarial reports. Both the funding model and the benefit itself will need further consideration as we look to the future to ensure it is available for those who need it in years to come. That was highlighted in this year's budget. Sir, in talking about pensions thus far, I have referred, of course, to the state's old age pension. That pension is, in comparison to some of our neighbours, more generous than others, but it is, at best, a safety net. Like most states' pensions, it was not designed to replace a working age salary in its entirety. Where we fall short of some of our neighbours is in not having a secondary pension scheme that allows people to save effectively for their retirement throughout their working life. I worked on this over 2022 and 23, and those plans were understandably deferred. But this is a vital piece of work that I intend to pursue over this term. If we can enable people to build a separate pension pot to draw on in retirement, that will avoid the embarrassment some older people feel in having to seek income support. It's important that we structure a scheme that works for Jersey, that doesn't seek to copy something that operates in a much bigger country or which establishes expensive and burdensome bureaucracy and systems. Simplicity, ease of operation and effectiveness will be key to introducing a new pension scheme. I'm under no illusion that this may be another controversial proposal, but I will work with all stakeholders to ensure we can deliver a scheme. I believe this would be a real legacy for this Assembly that is genuinely a matter of clear long-term strategy which will support islanders into the future. Many members will be aware of the Transform project, which will replace the existing social security and income support systems with a new system. It's long overdue, and as these projects so often do, has taken longer than we would have liked to deliver. It's essential that we complete that work as soon as we can to create a better interface and better experience for islanders. Lastly, we need appropriate, effective liaison with stakeholders. There are numerous stakeholders in social security, and we need to make sure we speak to them and indeed to the public about how best to develop our systems. It's impossible to comment on everything the department does in a relatively short speech, but I am happy to take questions, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. First question is from Deputy Andrews.
Thank you very much, sir. Can the candidate confirm whether she supports reintroducing the full states grant for the 2028 budget?
Senator.
Sir, thank you. I believe that is what the current budget says, and I would support that. As I did mention, however, there are actuarial reviews. Actuarial reviews are underway at present. When we have those reviews, we will be able to look from an informed basis of what we do regarding funding the scheme going forward, the social security funds. They are very healthy. We have considerable amounts of money in reserve. And we need to think about the wisdom of continuing to put funds into a fund that may not need them. So that is an ongoing piece of work which will happen when we see the actuarial reviews. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary?
Yes, please, sir. In the last government budgets, between 42 to 45 million of forecast investment income from the reserve was going to be used to supplement the Social Security fund, and I want to know whether the Minister supports me on this, that such investment income should be withheld in its entirety.
Senator.
Sorry, sir, can I ask the Deputy what he means by withholding it in its entirety?
Yes.
So the investment income will be retained in the reserve and it will not be used to supplement the Social Security fund.
Yes.
Sir, I think the Social Security Reserve Fund as a whole is used to may be used to supplement the payment of Social Security. It was designed, the Social Security Reserve Fund was designed years ago to help us deal with the increasing population. We're in a position where we have a smaller number of people paying in, potentially, and a larger number of people seeking pensions. So the fund as a whole will have to be used, and I think to carve out investment returns may not be possible. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. The Minister mentioned that there's significant spend on the Transform programme, currently about 30 million allocated. Given the cross-cutting impact of Transform, how will she work with other ministers to ensure that this significant spend in digital provides wider improvements for digital across the Council of Ministers in Government and is not just a siloed project?
Senator.
So the system is designed to address, I believe, social security and income support contributions and those related functions. To the extent the system can be enhanced for use in other departments, then I would support that. It makes complete sense to do that. I think the social security system captures information about very many. In fact, there are very few of us will not be on that system in some capacity, and it is sensible that we use it to its best advantage within the scope of Islander expectations about the information government holds and how it's used. But yes, in principle, that is something that we should be looking to do. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. I think one of the common challenges facing digital investment in government has been that improvements and change stop at the end of a project or a programme. So how will the Minister ensure that in the case of Transform and other projects, that there is a move to continuous development and improvement in digital and that the systems don't freeze the moment funding in capital ends?
Senator.
Sir, I think that's an ongoing issue for government as a whole. It's exactly, I absolutely accept that, and not just government. Many businesses put in new systems and then think, hurrah, that's us. I think he used the word, I believe, continuous improvement. I absolutely agree. We should always be seeking to look for improvements and enhancements in all of our systems, in all of our practices, and IT systems should not be exempt from that general principle. And I would certainly support continued work to make sure our systems are as good as they possibly can be. Thank you.
Deputy Ferry.
Thank you, sir. And I was very encouraged to hear the candidate mention workplace pensions or auto-enrolment, as it's known in the UK, and that would be a legacy of her tenure. When does she actually envisage such a scheme coming into force, sir?
Senator.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I've been trying to avoid the term auto-enrolment because it causes terror in the hearts of employers. But it may or may not operate in that effective way. I would hope, given the work that was done already, I would like to see that coming in before the end of this term. I had hoped that it would start in January 2026, and I would certainly hope we could see it coming in before we all head off in 2030. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. And does she see such a scheme being match funded between employer and employee?
Senator.
I think the reality, sir, is that without contributions from employers and employees, the scheme will not reach critical mass quickly enough. So there will need to be, and it would be, I would envisage, a relatively slow and timely period in which contributions start, because clearly it will have an impact on employees. So it will need to be, the transition into that scheme will have to be relatively slow and very careful, but it will need both sets of contributions to become economically viable in a reasonable time. Thank you.
Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. I seem to have missed if the candidate mentioned about the living wage in her opening speech. Does the candidate for minister support the transition to the minimum wage being a living wage?
Senator.
Sir, the minimum wage has increased dramatically over the last 4 years. In 2022, I increased it to £10.50, which was a little more than the recommendation of the Employment Forum at that time. Since then, it has been increased by a further £3.09. I think it has reached 2/3 of median, which was what this Assembly was seeking to do. Clearly, a living wage has lots of supporters, and we all want people to have good wages. But the States Assembly proposition said we had to be aware of economic conditions. The increases that we have seen were supported by investment of £20 million over the last 2 years by this Assembly into both farming and fishing to enable them to pay those higher wages, and into the economy generally to help support employers. So we always have to be aware of economic situation, and the last thing we want is to increase the wage to the level that nobody can afford to pay it, and we see people having hours cut and possibly even losing jobs. Any increase has to be taken very carefully, and we have to make sure that all stakeholders are consulted. But in principle, yes, a move to living wage is a good thing. Whether we can deliver that in every case is a question mark that needs very careful thought. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Does the candidate acknowledge the connection between employees having enough money to contribute to a secondary pension if their initial wages do not actually cover their cost of living, and therefore they're being supplemented by government through income support?
Senator.
Yes, indeed I do, sir. That's why I said the pension will be controversial. There will be a way we have to think about how we enable that. But I do think that it is, we all know, every money advisor you speak to will tell you that the sooner you start saving into pension, the better it is. And the more we are not well placed in Jersey to enable people to do that. People who have, I think there's only something like 30% of employees, certainly was 30%, have formal workplace pensions from their employers. And those who have private pensions, it's generally people who have higher earnings. So the more we can do to enable people to save for their older age, the better. I do accept that will be challenging, and we need to think carefully about how we do that. Thank you, sir.
Lily Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. The outgoing minister worked with the Health and Social Security panel to find a way forward on an amendment to the last budget, which committed the minister to provide options for those who've achieved a full contribution record prior to reaching pensionable age, to ensure a fair deal for the individuals affected, and to bring forward proposals in 2026. Will the Senator endorse that commitment and commit to bringing forward those options in short order so that a solution can be found?
Senator.
Sir, I think I touched on that on my speech, the fact that there are people who have a full contribution record because they started work at a young age, they've continued work, and they are still in work. Some people do like to work beyond retirement age, but even before it. So there are people exactly in that bracket. Yes, I'm sure options are in train, and that I will be presented with those options, and yes, absolutely, I will consider those. As I say, we do need to think about them in the context of the actuarial reviews and the future funding of the scheme. But yes, absolutely in principle, when people have a full contribution record, it does not feel right asking them to keep paying. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Yes, and I'm grateful for that response. Does the Minister have a timeline when she may expect to bring something forward, bearing in mind the decision was within 2026, and how quickly does she think that action could follow that proposal?
Senator.
Sir, as I say, I haven't seen what work has happened in the last 6 months. I'm sure the options will come with their own complexities and timeframes. I'm sure each will have an implication financially for the fund and for timing, and I will seek to reflect what the Assembly agreed in December.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. The Senator will be aware that the scrutiny panel published the family-friendly legislation review near the end of last term, and the previous minister gave a holding response. Will the Senator commit to publishing her views on the recommendations within this review, a full response, and will she make this a priority and do that as soon as possible?
Senator.
So yes, if that's an outstanding piece of work, then clearly it has to be completed, and to the extent the Minister has an obligation to complete work, then I will publish a response to the recommendations as soon as that's possible. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Yes, thank you, sir. One of the concerns that were raised in submissions to that review was around families living in poverty, questions that I asked of the Chief Minister. As the Social Security Minister is in a unique position to impact this, what are the Senator's plans to address child poverty in Jersey?
Senator.
I think to address, as I've said several times, well, it feels like numerous times during the election, to address a problem, you first have to understand it. I would propose to sit down with relevant stakeholders, understand where child poverty exists, what the reasons for it are, and consider ways to address it in the most targeted and effective way. That is a piece of work. I'm sure the department may have considered that already in the last couple of years or more recently, and I will take advice from officers and look at how we address that going forward.
Deputy Gleave.
Thank you, sir. I was pleased to hear the Senator talk about the long-term care scheme in her speech. The long-term care scheme is poorly understood by many islanders, particularly they don't really get to grips with it until they need to claim. Many believe that they're paying into an insurance scheme that will provide them with care as and when they need it, but in practice, those with assets, when support is required, it can be delayed by as much as 3 years and is only then a contribution. The 419k asset level has not been changed since 2014. Does the Senator believe the scheme is currently fair and properly understood, and what practical steps would they take to ensure it is fit for Jersey's ageing population?
Senator.
Sir, I think long-term care is a system of which we should be rightly very proud in this island. I'm astonished to hear about a 3-year delay. I think it is, you may be right in the sense that people do not get to grips. Why would you? People would not necessarily investigate benefits until they do need them. And what I always say to people is that as soon as they have a care need, then they should start going to talk to the department. I did do, in 2022 and 2023, I did do, well, that was one of my priorities in trying to make sure that long-term care is communicated as effectively as possible. The department took that challenge on, and have produced revised guidance notes which look at assets. It works very well. It's a universal benefit. It helps people depending on their care needs and on their finances. I think there is some confusion about it, and my understanding is basically that if you have assets, you are expected to pay a contribution of up to £60,000 towards the cost of your care. Beyond that, you will then receive the benefit, regardless of what your assets are at that time. The 419,000 has not been upgraded. That particular disregard was created because there was a concern at the time long-term care was introduced that there would be people who were, as we would say, asset-rich and cash-poor, and that they have a home but they have no income. And it enabled them to take bonds against the value of the property to enable them to pay the contribution from the asset that was not liquid. That has very rarely happened, and most people who have illiquid assets also have cash assets and have been able to pay their own contribution. As I said, the whole thing needs review. When we have that CHAO report, we will have to look at both the contribution and the benefit. The long-term care fund is spending more than it receives. That's not sustainable. So we will, as I say, there are some difficult decisions ahead. This Assembly will have to look, and this was highlighted in this year's budget, this Assembly will have to look both at how we contribute into the fund and the benefit we pay. And that is something that I expect to be bringing forward in the future. Thank you, Sir.
Supplementary.
Thank you. I think that has demonstrated to a degree the lack of understanding from everybody about long-term care. The 3 years is if you are assessed at level 1, and if you have an asset of 419 Nova, you have to pay for your care for just short of 3 years if you are assessed at level 1 for 3 years. It is no longer a financial limit, it is a time limit. And then that goes down at level 2, level 3 and level 4. I think we could be introducing greater flexibility in terms of how it's spent, but would the Minister commit to sitting down with me and I can take her through it and we can potentially look at flexible decisions going or a way to improvement going forward, but certainly we need to improve how it is understood by everyone.
Senator.
Well, sir, if there is a time limit, it's not something I was aware of. It must be something that has been done in the last couple of years, but I don't understand that concern. It's not my understanding of the scheme, and I think there are lots of misunderstandings of the scheme and how it works on a day-to-day level. It is a very complicated beast to explain to people. That is the problem. But officers work very hard to try and do that. We have worked very hard in the past on communication, and we will continue to do that. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. Following the unanimous agreement for whistleblowing legislation, which was due to be brought forward in December 2024. Obviously, there was delays, and the previous minister instead has actually presented the draft law as a report in March of this year. Will the senator commit to ensuring that this legislation is brought forward as legislation and enacted accordingly? Thank you, sir.
Senator.
The Assembly approved the principle of whistleblowing legislation, sir, and I see no immediate reason. I haven't read the draft law, but I see no immediate reason why I wouldn't bring that forward.
Supplementary.
Is the senator able to give me an idea of timing for that, please?
Not at this stage, sir, sorry.
Connaught Arbison-Brillard.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Coles mentioned living wage. While calling on Sir Brillard's residents during the recent election, it became clear to me that pensioners living solely off Jersey state pensions are struggling to meet the cost of living, day-to-day living. Would the Senator consider a comprehensive review of the current level of state pension to ensure it really is a living pension, a pension that gives our senior citizens a decent quality of life and are not scared to venture out because of the costs?
Senator.
Sir, I don't think any pensioner, I think if a pensioner is struggling to live on the state's pension, they are able to, they would be, income support would be available to them. So there are other safety nets available for pensioners. There are other benefits such as Pension Plus. As I mentioned in my speech, pensions were never designed to replace a wage. They are, I think, in most jurisdictions, pension is about a third of average wages, or they are about a third of measured against a certain level of earnings. A massive increase in pensions would involve a massive increase in contributions, I suspect. The fund is having to pay pensions for very much longer than it might have expected. I think when pensions were originally introduced in the 1950s in the UK, the average person retired at 65 and died at 68. People are now living into their 80s and 90s. We have to take cognizance of that, and we also need to be fair to younger generations who are to be having to meet those costs. So I did say that we need to look at the funding, the nature of our fund, how we continue to fund it going forward, and bear in mind that pensions are no longer for 3 years, They may be for 30 or more years, and we must be sure that we can pay them for everybody and not just for a small few for a small period of time. Thank you.
That brings the period of questions to an end. And as there were no other nominations and the question period has been completed, I'm pleased to confirm that Senator Miller has been appointed, selected for appointment as Minister for Social Security. We now move on to selection of the Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning. Chief Minister, your nomination, please.
Thank you, sir, and I am pleased to nominate Deputy Catherine Curtis for the role of Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the nomination seconded?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other nominations? There are no other nominations. I invite Deputy Catherine Curtis to speak for up to 10 minutes, after which there'll be a period of questions for up to 20 minutes. Deputy Curtis.
Thank you, sir. States members will be aware that I've chaired the Children Education Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel for the last 4 years. During this time, I and panel members produced the Secondary Education Funding Review, the Online Harms Review, and the Lifelong Learning Review, along with many other reports. We have been fortunate to engage with many head teachers, other education professionals, parents, and young people. We have raised issues in public hearings and held many private meetings too, for example, with the educational psychologists and with the Jersey Early Years Association, and received expert testimony from organisations such as the Jersey Childcare Trust and the teaching unions. We brought many amendments, including urgent upgrades to Highlands College infrastructure. So as well as bringing up my own children, I have looked after other children too. I was a foster carer for about 5 years. I'm familiar with the processes involved in the care of looked after children, and I completed the Solihull training to the highest level. The reason I mention this in my speech as Education Minister is to state clearly that we must ensure that children who've gone through such difficult circumstances must be given due appreciation of those circumstances at school and may well need extra support. And this brings me on to the subject of special educational needs and disabilities, SEND for short, because we have to acknowledge the extra needs that some of our children face. As we know from the Independent Jersey Care Inquiry, children have not been well served in Jersey. There are many improvements underway since the publication last year of the SEND review, and the immediate priorities plan must be fully implemented. I would like to see the project for the development of Montelabbey School to expand capacity accelerated. We know there are children who are in mainstream schools who could be better served at Montelabbey. We also know that one reason mainstream schools are falling into deficit is because of the high cost of extra staff needed to assist with those children with extra needs. I would like to work with the Children's Minister and the Health Minister to look at ways to speed up the process for assessments. Currently, schools have to manage pupils with those extra needs while waiting for assessments to take place, and therefore the extra funding for SEND and records of needs could be implemented more quickly. While SEND is a complex subject, the point to always keep in mind is that every child deserves an education that is appropriate to the child's age, ability, and aptitude. And indeed, this is prescribed in the Education Law 1999. While many families and children are happy with their school experience, we could benefit from more data collection and publication. Evidence-based assessment would assist in making improvements to the curriculum and pedagogy. Regarding further education, as Education Minister, I would be checking up on the current situation regarding V levels due to be implemented in the UK in September next year, and how they are carried out, because as a small jurisdiction, we may not have the ability to source placement requirements. As for universities, I myself have worked with Nottingham Trent University and Portsmouth University on 2 different business projects. So I'm familiar in engaging with universities and involving them in projects. I'm aware of the many problems that Jersey students have when studying in the UK, from my own family experience and from hearing from the Student Loan Support Group and from other students directly. There are relatively small things that Jersey could do to assist our students studying in the UK. For example, the fact that many of them have to pay a guarantor, perhaps around £80 per month to rent their student homes, because Jersey-based guarantors are not normally accepted. I'd like to see if we can sort that problem out. We do need to think more carefully about student finance more generally and its sufficiency. Currently, only students with a parental income at or below £52,600 receive a full maintenance grant. A family income above this level means they can only study if they have a very supportive family and or if they can work extra hours around their study time. And it's not easy to get employment in the UK right now. At least students studying in Jersey now have access to the maintenance grant, so it would be good to also extend the subject opportunities here at degree level. Of course, not all young people want to study a degree, and some are much more suited to apprenticeships. And while chair of the CEHA panel, we completed, with the addition of Deputy Tadia, our lifelong learning review in February this year. We received submissions from young people, parents, organisations and businesses, and we had an expert reviewer as well. I intend to follow through with the recommendations and will be seeking the support of the Sustainable Economics Minister to bring the recommendations to action. It's imperative that Jersey does not hold back on investing in skills. Although there is more cost up front, it's essential to our economy to have skilled workers, and it's also another reason for young people to stay here, that they have more opportunities. We need to invest in people to reskill too. As the job market changes due to AI, Jersey will be ahead of the game if we have multi-skilled workers. While there is much good work carried out by Highlands College and Skills Jersey, as well as our schools, I would like to broaden the scope of some of these organisations to ensure that barriers to learning are removed, awareness of opportunities improved, and that there are many more vocational opportunities for young people within the school curriculum and more business involvement. So now I'm happy to move on to an apparently very contested subject, the development of a new school on the Gas Place site. This was proposed by the government in 2022. It was not a Reform Jersey project as publicised by certain people during the elections. The Education Minister in 2022 described the town school project as, and I quote, absolutely vital that children in town have access to modern, high-quality facilities and outdoor play areas. And I don't think any States member would disagree with that. And St Luke's, Springfield and La Passerelle school infrastructure still needs improvement. So 4 years on, that situation has not changed. Clearly, though, the numbers may have changed, although this is more likely to affect schools in the countryside. The Education Law 1999 requires the Education Minister each year to assess the current and future requirements for a provision of school places by reference to the ages and numbers of the children of Jersey, and that is the law. So I will be looking at those figures in the light of the declining birth rate. And of course, if there was a better way to provide the necessary improved school facilities in town, rather than building on Gas Place, then that would be a good outcome. However, all previous research shows that the new school on the Gas Place site is likely to be the best option. One very immediate priority is the matter of excessive heat in schools. Due to climate change, this is unlikely to be a problem that will go away. Therefore, there will have to be a centralised action plan in place for all schools to manage this issue so that everyday education is not disrupted. Now I'd like to mention some of the recent successes. the extended nursery provision, enabling parents to have more choice about work or staying at home, and the well-known benefits to young children. Although there were some concerns around the funding and payment processes, overall it's been a big success, and there have been great pilot projects too. The changes in the school leadership structure also are very interesting, and I think will prove to be very, very beneficial. The limits on mobile phone use in schools have been welcomed by families, teachers and children. This was implemented by the Minister during the ongoing work on online harms by the panel. The school meals programme is a wonderful outcome to some very diligent work undertaken by officers, States members and schools. I would encourage all States members to visit the schools, and it is lovely to see children sitting at the table together, eating good quality food. Finally, a surprising point is that this is not the first time I've been nominated as Education Minister. I'm sure we are all aware of the good work that's gone into teaching children at school about political systems. And many years ago, when I was in Prep 4, as it was then called, at the FCJ, we learned about UK politics and held mock elections, and I was nominated as Education Minister. So, not the first time for me, but I hope I will be able to fulfil actual improvements this time, and I thank the Chief Minister for his nomination.
Thank you, Deputy. The first question is from Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. During the election, sir, it was unfortunate, but I was approached by two parents who didn't know me, and I wasn't knocking on their doors. They approached me in the street, and also in the hustings was asked a question about special educational needs. And one of the parents had asked me the question, what proportion of those parents who complained about special educational needs provision were subsequently investigated by social services? Of course, I didn't know the answer. They said 100%. I do not know how correct this is, but I would like to know what the candidate will be doing to understand the veracity of this statement, and if it is found to be true, what is her opinion of that?
Deputy Curtis.
So during my time on the panel, I didn't shy away from meeting parents who were very concerned about how they were being treated in this way, and tried to assist them to work things through as best as possible. So partly with raising many concerns around this and other people's concerns, that's why the SEND review was looked into and published last year. That's one of the reasons why. I think one of the really important priorities in that review is to involve parents in regular discussion meetings with teachers and the head teachers and the department. And I know that there is ongoing independent checking up on the procedure of how the review outcome is going. So I will be keeping a close eye on that.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. If correct, such statements suggest a very vindictive attitude within the education department. Does the candidate believe that that attitude may exist? And if so, what will she do about that?
It's very hard to know how something which one person has complained about is broadly there. So there have been changes in some of the top areas in the department already. There have been new people coming in, and so it's quite a new broom in a way. I think that could solve any of those potential problems, but like I said, it needs checking up on.
Deputy Ferry.
Thank you, sir. And I was encouraged in the candidate's speech to hear her mention play spaces in schools, because we have some wonderful play spaces in schools which unfortunately are not available to many children and young people when the schools are closed. So will the candidate commit to seeking to make those play spaces in schools as available as possible to all children and young people at all times?
Deputy Curtis.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think part of the problem so far has been that a lot of the school buildings are not very well designed to allow for outside people to come in when there might still be children using the school, even after school time, due to safeguarding concerns. I'd like to see if there's a way to sort of progress any of the work that's been going on so far, to see how there are workarounds around that problem. And I mean, any new school builds will include that aspect of being a community school at the same time. But the current buildings that we already have are not always very easily accessible, as I said, but there must be ways to improve on that.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. And will the candidate commit to implementing and working with other ministers to implement the recommendations in the play strategy, which was implemented within the last government?
Deputy.
I'm very much supportive of the play strategy and would really look forward to working with the Children's Minister and any others to support that.
Deputy Talia.
The Minister referred to the fact that the recent heat wave had shown issues at schools where the working temperatures were far too high, both for teachers, staff and pupils. Does she agree that in some of these cases, this is a good example of a false economy where schools have actually been historically forced to choose between ventilation, for example, windows that can't open versus other spending in the school, and that we're reaping the consequences of this poor planning and false economy now?
Deputy Curtis.
Yes, unfortunately, there's been an awful lot of misinformation over the years about the effects of climate change. It's unlikely this is just a one-off or two times off of heat waves so far this year. And I think it has to be acknowledged now. It could have been acknowledged earlier, but it wasn't perhaps considered well enough. So there are a variety of things that schools can do to counteract the heat in schools, but clearly head teachers and the other professionals in the schools already have a job to do, and it's the responsibility of the department to bring about a full strategy for this.
Supplementary.
Does the Minister accept that these problems predate modern climate change concerns, and that actually what we're seeing here is often at the building stage, in order to keep costs down, certain things have been scrimped on, not done, i.e. ventilation, which has a consequence in the future? And will she resist any such suggestion that any future schools that are built or anything in the portfolio should be done properly to avoid these kind of scenarios happening again?
Deputy Curtis.
Yes, it's a false economy to not do things which need correcting at a later stage. It's much cheaper at the new build stage to do something than later on to try and put it right. So that's not economic good sense anyway, and it's also disruptive to pupils and the staff.
Deputy Carpenter.
Thank you, sir. The UK government has recently announced a ban on social media use for children under the age of 16, following a similar ban introduced in Australia. Would the candidate consider such a ban appropriate for Jersey?
Deputy Curtis.
As I'm sure all States members know, the panel produced the online harms review. We started that in 2024, and the purpose of that was to try and raise the issue, make it much more of an awareness with government, and to set out the basic premises of the problem. Since that time, we've watched closely how things like the UK Online Safety Act are proceeding, the Online Act in Ireland, for example, which has brought quite a number of cases against the big tech companies and fined them quite a lot of money. Unfortunately, none of these things has managed to curtail the violence and illegal nature that children are exposed to online. So I always considered a complete ban for under 16s of social media to be a backstop position, but I think it's one that we may actually have to do, because expecting the online big companies to actually take any notice of us, or even bigger nations, is probably not going to happen.
Supplementary.
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Well, Deputy Carpenter has just touched on the harms and the dangers of digital. Turning to digital education and skills, these will be essential in our schools to create a digital and skilled workforce. So from her experience, will the candidate provide her assessment of our current digital education syllabus and model, and how will she ensure that the policies, teaching and skill sets remain up to date in such a fast-changing domain?
Deputy Catherine Curtis.
Unfortunately, it seems like the digital education strategy has not progressed as I thought it would. Certainly, digital is a big part of our world now, and everyone needs to know how to use it. I would like to speak to Digital Jersey more and other knowledgeable people in the area. I know parents don't want their children on screen for too long during the day, so we have to consider that. But certainly as children get older, they need to know an awful lot about digital and how to use it safely and intelligently. So it's one area where I think things have fallen behind a little bit.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Digital education also extends to lifelong learning, which is in the candidate's title. Does she see an opportunity for more and different delivery of digital skills to equip our existing workforce? And if so, how does she plan to work with other ministers, including the Minister for Economic Development, with responsibility for Digital Jersey and Jersey Business, to ensure that the Council of Ministers has an aligned and holistic direction on digital?
Deputy Catherine Curtis.
Yes, so there are certain problems which are very, I would imagine, are quite straightforward to solve. So for reskilling, a lot of people might want to take up some digital training. Unfortunately, at the moment, to get their skills grants, they have to apply for a grant training that's within the area they're already working in. So I think that's a definite thing that needs changing. I would be very happy to work with the other ministers to progress this, and I think it is very important that we get on with this work.
Conor St John.
Thank you, sir. So, building on Deputy Ferry's question, would the candidate support a proposition for the use of all government-owned school facilities to be used for sport and community use outside of school hours under a centralised booking system?
Deputy Curtis.
Yes, of course, except it has to be possible and practical. So we have to overcome those difficulties and set out how it can be done while children may still be on the premises.
Supplementary.
Yes, thank you, sir. So I know the deputy takes a solutions-based approach. Would the candidate agree that many schools already have CCTV and that with small investment in CCTV, then outside play space could be open across the school estate after school hours? Thank you, sir.
Deputy Curtis.
Yes, of course, and I'd be happy to talk to the Conotop about it more.
Deputy Lee.
Thank you, sir. The October 2025 Island SEND is Special Education Needs and Disability Review set out clear failings in provision. Which of its recommendations will the deputy implement in her first year?
Deputy Curtis.
I want to continue with all the priorities that were set out to be implemented. I don't know yet which ones are the easier ones to implement more quickly. I'll have to work on that. The one that I think is one of the most important is the participation of parents with the department and the head teachers and teachers, because I think the parent voice has not been acknowledged sufficiently in the past.
Supplementary.
The panel also produced the priority delivery plan. So if so, will she publish a delivery timeline that the panel can hold her to?
Deputy Curtis.
I think as soon as it is possible to do so, it would be a good thing to set out the priorities and in a timeline, if that's possible, yes.
Deputy Raimondo.
Thank you, sir. Could the Deputy speak to her thoughts on adapting the structure of the PSHE curriculum to include standardised teaching in areas such as sexual education, financial skills, violence against women and girls, and also Jersey's political system. Thank you.
Deputy Curtis.
I'll need to check on the current curriculum around PSHE. I think that a lot of these things are already covered. Perhaps they can be done more or in a better way. It's certainly something that I need to check on more at this stage. The Curriculum Council is responsible for putting these things together. So the whole curriculum I'm willing to have a look at.
Supplementary.
Would the Deputy push for additional hours moved towards the PSHE curriculum, and also, again, standardising that system so that we have the same teaching across schools in the island?
Deputy Curtis.
It's a very interesting point, because I know that some schools, do like to take their own approach a little bit more, and I know there's also many people who want a more standardised way of this happening across all schools. At this stage, I can only say it's something I will look into.
Conor Davison-Hellier.
Thank you, sir. Would the candidate, we agree with the candidate, sir, that children of St. Helier deserve a modern school. Saying this, we also need a green space. The Gas Place site was secured in Regional Island Plan, followed the amendment from Deputy Ward in 2021. Since then, other sites become available. Would the candidate consider to look other options to secure that both priorities for St. Helier can be delivered? As an example, Apollo Hotel site that was proposed for the housing, nothing was built, or many other sites that might become available since 2021.
Deputy Curtis.
Yes, I mean, as I've already said, it's part of the education law that the Minister must look each year at the numbers and the placements for schools. So, many people I've spoken to during the elections wanted the school to go ahead very much. So there were other people who don't want the school to go ahead on Gas Place. But I think it's my duty as Minister to look at the numbers again. I think an awful lot was looked into before, as the Connotar will know, and but I'm happy to look at it again, bearing in mind that's part of my duty to do so.
Supplementary.
And would the Minister commit that whatever decision will come forward will be discussed at the Assembly and community fully be involved, how the place is developed as a community asset, even on Gas Place site or any other sites in proximity to the place?
Deputy Curtis.
I'm always for sharing of information and getting feedback from the community on what they want. I will have to look how the normal ministerial processes have unfolded before this time as well, and what is expected there.
Deputy Morrell.
Thank you, sir. As I'm sure the candidate will be aware, in the next year or two, the 3-year pay settlement, which was set at an RPI +1 pay settlement, will come to an end. Given the rhetoric in the elections about ensuring we get to grip of costs in government, I can't believe that there will be an inflation-busting pay rise again for the pay settlement, but we have seen a great deal of union strike action from teachers in the past few years when it comes to pay. Could the candidate please explain how she would manage potentially disgruntled workforce if such an RPI-busting pay settlement is not delivered again this time?
Deputy Curtis.
My way to try and manage anything like that is to invite people in and talk to them as much as possible, which is what we did as a panel over the disagreements between how the nursery funding should continue. Having not long ago spoken to some of the teaching unions, their main concern has been around the allocation of the planning and preparation time that was agreed that they will be able to have the extra marking time available instead of teaching, and how that the funding has been put with the schools, but the schools can only put it into practice once they have extra staff to cover that time. So it's rolling out slowly. That's been the main concern that's been raised with me so far.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. So from that perspective, is the candidate does the candidate feel assured that there is not going to be such strike action by teachers in the coming years?
Deputy Curtis.
I don't know what they're going to do in the coming years. I haven't heard anything raised about that, I can say that.
If there are no more questions for Deputy Curtis, Deputy Raimundo.
Thank you, sir. As the deputy is in support of possibly introducing a under 16 social media ban, how would she work with the schools to ensure that 16-year-olds who are in their GCSE years are not affected with an introduction of social media? Thank you.
Deputy Curtis.
Well, pupils at school at the moment are not permitted to use their mobile phones. The social media ban would be for 16-year-olds and under. So when young people are studying at school, they're not likely or should not be using social media at the time. I can't go into detail how this will occur because it's something hypothetical and into the future.
Supplementary?
Yes, as we know during GCSE periods, 80% of studying tends to be done outside of school, and yet the schools have a large amount of influence in what happens. So it would be incredibly important for something to be done within schools and with students who are ultimately about to sit exams that will affect the rest of their life.
And your question at the end?
That would be what will be done, because it is important and we can't neglect those students.
All right. We've got a few seconds left to reply, Deputy Curtis.
I'm not sure about the meaning of the question. People will try and get past any limits on social media. This has happened in Australia, but what we've also seen is that the younger people are learning a way to go ahead without using social media every day.
Thank you, and the question period is now at an end, and I can confirm that Deputy Catherine Curtis has been selected for appointment as the Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning. Now move to selection of the Minister for Children and Families. Senator Farnham, can we have your nomination?
Yes, sir. Watching the World Cup last night, I noticed they have a hydration break now and again. I'm wondering if we don't get the air conditioning fixed, we might need one of those later. So I'm very pleased to nominate Conatable Richard Vibert of St Peter for the role of Children's Minister. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the nomination seconded?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other nominations? There are no other nominations, and I invite the Conatable of St Peter to speak for up to 10 minutes, after which there'll be a question period of up to 20 minutes. Conatable.
Thank you, sir. Firstly, I would like to thank the Chief Minister for my nomination. Today I seek support of members for my re-election as Minister for Children and Families. I was appointed Minister in February 2024, having previously served as Assistant Minister for almost 3 years. During that time, I had the privilege of working alongside dedicated professionals, carers, young people and families who share a common goal, ensuring that every child in Jersey has the opportunity to thrive. This portfolio carries responsibility for some of the most vulnerable members of our community: children in need of protection, children in care, care leavers, children with complex needs, young people experiencing mental health difficulties, and also youth services that help prevent problems before they arise. When I became Minister, I made a commitment to focus on delivery of long-term reform and improving outcomes for children and young people. I believe that commitment has been honoured, and I'm proud of the progress that has been made to date. One of the achievements of which I'm most proud has been the modernisation of Jersey's family and children's legislation. We abolished the concept of illegitimacy in law, ending a form of discrimination that had no place in modern society. We updated family legislation to reflect the reality of modern family life, including same-sex parents, fertility treatment, and surrogacy. We also introduced parental responsibility agreements for step-parents. These reforms recognise a simple principle: Every child deserves equal status, equal protection, and equal recognition under the law. Alongside these changes, we strengthen children's rights. Independent advocacy is now a statutory right for children in care, care leavers, and children with additional needs. We've continued the important work of embedding the UNCRC across government, public authorities, and the parishes. These measures help ensure that children, particularly the most vulnerable, have a stronger voice in decisions that affect their lives. Legislation, however, is only part of the story. Real improvement also depends on strong services and a skilled workforce. When I became Minister, one of the most significant challenges was workforce instability. Too many children and families were experiencing changes in social workers and carers. Consistently, relationships which are critical for vulnerable people were interrupted. We have therefore invested significantly in recruitment, retention, and workforce development. We've reduced our reliance on agency staff from something like 65% to 30% and strengthened our permanent workforce. There is still work to do, but we are moving in the right direction and providing greater continuity for the children and families who rely on our services. As a corporate parent, I have focused on improving the care provision for children who cannot safely live at home. We have strengthened the Corporate Parenting Board and opened additional children's homes, improved governance arrangements, and begun long overdue investment in our residential estate, including the transformation of Greenfield Secure Home. Importantly, we also secured 22 million for Children's Services Improvement Programme, representing the most significant investment in children's services reform for many years. This programme will enable us to create services that are more responsive, more joined up, and better able to meet the needs of children and families. Mental health has been another major priority. Demand for support has grown both locally and internationally. Despite that pressure, CAMHS continues to perform strongly. Routine mental health assessments are completed on average within 32 days. We introduced 24-hour crisis mental health nursing support, expanded diagnostic assessment capability, and completed record numbers of ADHD and autism assessments. We've also delivered Jersey's new all-age mental health strategy, providing a clear framework for future improvements. I firmly believe that these achievements demonstrate the value of keeping CAMHS within the children and families portfolio, where vulnerable children receive the focus and visibility and the priority that they deserve. Prevention has been central to my approach as Minister. The best outcomes are achieved not only by responding to crises, but by helping families and young people before problems become entrenched. Last year alone, more than 3,600 young people engaged with the Jersey Youth Service Programmes, while over 2,100 received targeted one-to-one support. These services play a vital role in keeping young people connected, supported, and engaged in their communities. I am also proud of the progress we made on the new Ann Street Youth Centre. This represents one of the most significant investments in youth provision that Jersey has ever undertaken. It will create opportunities for generations of young islanders and provide a modern, welcoming space where young people can develop skills, confidence, and aspirations for the future. We must also recognise that many families continue to face significant financial pressures. The rising cost of living affects family stability and ultimately children's well-being. While some of these pressures are driven by global factors beyond our control, the government has taken practical steps to support islanders, which I have supported. Income support has increased. The enhanced community cost bonus has been maintained. The minimum wage has continued its progression towards a living wage, and the cost of GP appointments has been reduced. We have expanded childcare support, introduced affordable hot school meals in primary schools, increased access to social housing, and supported first-time buyers through the First Step scheme. These measures are not simply economic policies, they are investments in children and families. Children thrive where families have stability, opportunity, and confidence in their future. Of course, challenges remain. Demand for services continues to increase. Recruiting foster carers remains difficult. Placement sufficiency remains a significant challenge, and workplace pressures persist in some areas. But leadership is not all pretending that challenges do not exist. Leadership is about recognising them honestly, addressing them openly, and putting in place the measures needed to achieve improvement. That is the approach I've taken throughout my time as Minister, and it is the approach I will continue to take if re-elected. My priorities for the next term are clear. First, I will deliver the £22 million Children's Services Improvement Programme, bringing services together around the needs of the child and strengthening early intervention. Secondly, I will increase foster care and residential capacity so that more children in Jersey can receive the support they deserve. Third, I will complete the transformation of Greenfield and continue investing in specialist residential provision. Fourth, I will further reduce our reliance on agency staff and continue building a stable, highly skilled and well-supported permanent workforce. Fifth, I will reduce waiting times for neurodevelopmental assessments, strengthen support for neurodivergent children, and fully implement the mental health strategy. Sixth, I will ensure the successful opening of the Ann Street Youth Centre and continue investing in prevention and youth services. Seventh, I will strengthen support for care-experienced young people through improved housing, education, employment opportunities, and the Care Experience Fund. I will also work closely with colleagues to address the growing challenge of online harms affecting children and young people. This is an issue that concerns many parents, teachers, and young people themselves. Recent discussions have highlighted strong concerns about harmful content, cyberbullying, and online safety. At the same time, young people consistently tell us that digital platforms help them maintain friendships, access support networks, and stay connected. Our response must be balanced, proportionate, and informed by evidence. Most importantly, it must involve those affected. I will ensure that parents, young people, schools, and experts all play a central role in shaping Jersey's future approach to online safety. Finally, I will be championing children's rights across every area of government, ensuring that the voice of children and young people remain at the heart of public decision-making. Members, over the past few years, I have demonstrated that I can build consensus, deliver legislative reform, secure investment, and drive meaningful change. The foundations have been laid. The next term must be about building on that progress and turning reform into lasting transformation. This is the work that I have begun and I wish to continue and complete. Members, I thank you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Conrad. We now move to a period of questions, and the first question is from Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. Both in his speech and previously, the Minister has described an effective crisis in the availability of beds for children in care, and the budget currently recognises that children's services are at a critical turning point. Will he commit to opposing any savings target, efficiency measure, or budget decision that would slow down the expansion of residential care, weaken safe staffing, or reduce support for foster carers?
I certainly will. We have to complete the work that we have started. We have a number of premises. One has been completed. There are other at the planning stage. And likewise with foster caring. We have introduced a new scheme for called the Hive, which means that people group together to provide support. And I do not wish to see any cuts in those initiatives, so I would fight any cost savings in these areas.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Minister for his answer. My supplementary question then is that if the Treasury Minister were to ask for savings from children's services, will the Minister say today that children in care, residential standards and foster care support are not the place to find them?
I certainly would, because for 10 years, I think, we struggled with the outcome of the care inquiry, and in fact, not a great deal of progress was made. We have secured 22 million. There's about 15.7 million in capital funds and the remainder in revenue. And if we have that commitment, we cannot look to those areas for savings.
Deputy Jones.
Thank you. Jersey is sending more children than ever before off island, and this did happen under the candidate's previous tenure as Children's Minister. Obviously, recognising the risks of grooming and the pervasive and persistent harm of being removed from everything and everyone you know, what does the Minister predict this trajectory to continue, or will he improve the situation of not sending children off island?
Thank you for that question. We certainly do not choose to send children outside the island for other than very specialist reasons. We have actually overall reduced the numbers, although I do agree that I believe in the last 12 months, we have seen an increase. Some of those are due to specialist needs, others because we have been hit with a crisis in the residential field in getting staff to staff our residential premises. We have a review of terms and conditions. Unfortunately, as yet, we have not been able to implement those improvements, and that has not been our doing, that we've not been able to do that. That has been external influences. I would say, though, that we are talking of a very small number of children sent to the UK. I certainly think that in the last, the number that's been sent in the last year is definitely in single figures and certainly below 5. So we are talking very, very small numbers, and in the vast majority of cases, they are for very specialist reasons where it would be unhelpful for the child's well-being to actually remain in the island. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, so thank you, and I thank the CONOTAB for raising that there has been some difficulties within the system to help keep children on island, and I was, if the CONOTAB could say what, not only those challenges, but how he will overcome those challenges as soon as possible, so we don't see any increase in trajectory to have more children going off island, because we won't have staff to support in accommodation, or in fact families who are willing to foster as well.
It's a little difficult to speak about the reasons why we've been able to why we haven't been able to implement the terms and conditions review. Prior to being selected for nomination for Minister, I did raise the matter and saying, irrespective of whether I was re-elected or not, that this was to be treated as a priority to come to to resolve the issues that are preventing us implementing those improvements, because residential staff had not had a review for over 10 years and had slipped significantly behind other staff. And there's little, you know, you can clearly understand why we have had problems in recruiting those staff. I want to see a very quick end to that. And I can say that I am already treating it as a priority. I raised it before even my nomination came forward.
Deputy Carpenter.
Thank you, sir. The children's plan recognises that children's well-being depends on decent housing, enough food, and families being able to cope financially. will the candidate commit to challenging any Council of Ministers' decisions that increases hardship for families with children, even if the decision formally sits in another minister's portfolio?
I think as Children's Minister, it is my duty to do that. Children's needs will come first. I think that I am, in a way, my position as constable puts me in a position where I am very close to understanding about those families who find themselves in financial hardship. Even this morning, an email, a type of email which I received probably a couple of times a week was from a family who are now struggling. They are not on income support, but they're just below the threshold. They've had a 10% increase in their child care fees, and they cannot meet those payments. I'm very aware of the needs for, and I will challenge those. Thank you.
Supplementary?
The candidate may have already answered this perhaps, but does he accept that child poverty is not only a social security issue, but a children's and families issue for which he must be an advocate inside government?
Absolutely. I think people are well aware that, you know, we as parishes see gaps in the social security scheme. It's an extremely good scheme, but there are some things where there are gaps, and the parishes, I think all of them, will assist people where they fall in those gaps. So I'm close to, it's a subject I'm very close to, and you know, I understand it, and one which I put my whole heart into trying to do something about.
Thank you, sir. There is an ongoing concern about the attendance or the lack of attendance of children at our passerelle, and the risk of grooming that those children face when they are not at school. And I was wondering how the Minister would work with the Education Minister to help address that.
I'm certainly, I have heard of this, and I think I will have discussions with the new Education Minister about how our staff who are experienced in dealing with you know, areas such as grooming, how they can assist, and I'm more than happy to do that.
Supplementary? Front Thompson Hellier.
Thank you. The court have repeatedly warned that children in our care get missing. We have missing behaviours from the care, and sometimes this missing behaviour escalates into secure care, in some cases removed from the island. What specifically the candidate will do differently this term to ensure that missing episodes will be decreasing and it means less children and young people will go into secure care?
I think I have a statistic that actually no other members of the Assembly will be aware of, but last month the numbers of missing children had fallen by 94%. So I know the police chief is going to look into some of those figures more closely, but I think there is. I think we're doing the right things at the moment. I've got a lot of faith in the staff, and certainly the number of reported missing had fallen by 94%, which is a tremendous achievement. I don't think that's necessarily going to be that we won't see a slight rise again. I think that was perhaps a one or, you know, but the trend is downwards, and, you know, we are working with young people to find out why they go missing, and using measures to divert them from doing that. And we appear to be having success. So I think I would continue doing very much what we're doing at the moment. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Absolutely, and I'm pleased to hear these numbers, and I hope it will not be one-off and it will be continued trend of reducing missing episodes. In this case, because we were not aware about the statistics for the last months, would the candidate also let Assembly know about the stability of the placement, because we had previously instability in the places and often changes of the placement for children. Was the changes reduced as well? And if not, what the candidate will do that to ensure stability of the placements?
Right on.
I mean, there have been two factors that have affected stability of placements. One has been the lack of permanent staff, and we are working that in the residential area. As I say, we have been frustrated in not being able to introduce the improvements we wish to improve in the package for those residential staff. The other has been, of course, the lack of suitable residential premises, and for many years the properties that were allocated to children's services were often, that which the government had available, sometimes for fairly short terms. Of course, when we had to close premises because they needed them back, we then had to move the children again. We're bringing that to an end with our current project, and the 15.7 million of the 22 million is being spent on what is now a 4-year plan, 26 to 29, of creating permanent children's residential homes, each of which takes around between 3 and 4 children. And we are happy that we'll have sufficiency for the future. Those are two initiatives combined, the terms and conditions review and the property review, I think lay the foundations for a lot more stability. Thank you.
Deputy Lee.
Thank you, sir. So very delighted to hear that the Children's Service Improvement Programme committed a significant sum to invest in the service now. But the figure has never been the question. It's about whether that funding reached the children or not. So what measurable improvement in outcomes that for our most vulnerable children will the constable be able to show?
I think one of the main improvements that we will see, which I've touched on, is the fact that we will have permanent residential homes. There is nothing better than for a child than a stable and loving home. And for those children who find themselves in a position of, in some cases, not having parents or not being with their parents, it's absolutely essential in the long term that in effect they feel that they're part of a family, and that's what we're trying to achieve through our Loving Homes programme. So I think that's one of the major parts of it. The other is that there's stability with the staff that are in those homes. So we touch on that again in that, those people are that child's family. And if they're in the home for, a number of years, it's very important that there is that sort of family atmosphere or family group. And I think those are the two main things that I wish to deliver.
Supplementary?
No, sir.
Deputy Raimondo.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister talk to if and how he would plan to support families and parents with transgender identifying children?
I recognise the challenges that can present, because very good friends of mine who are foster parents fostered a transgender child for many years, and it was only through their caring that that child really had a successful outcome. So it's an area that I think we possibly need more specialism, and it's one that I would like to look at further, having seen the experience of that family, and the challenges that were presented as that young person grew through various stages of life. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Please. So, following on from that, would the Minister support increasing the age threshold for young people wanting to access gender-affirming care?
Conatap.
Right. I think I would need to. I would need to see. I'm not going to make a commitment on that in this assembly because I'd want to see research. But I'm completely open. I haven't got, at this point, I haven't got any set view about it. So, let's see the research and let's see what that indicates we should do.
Are there any further questions for the Conatap? Deputy Bolson.
Thank you, sir. I'm aware that there are ongoing concerns about the grooming of children at La Passerelle. Could the Conatap explain what he would do to actually address those concerns and what he would also do to address the concerns of those children who are coming back into the island who are subject to grooming and exploitation? Thank you.
Conatap.
Well, of course, I don't think it's just these children. There are a much larger number, a much larger number in total. There are children being groomed, throughout our island, sadly. We have resources, we have people that specialise in that, it is a problem, but I don't think it's just in, yes, there's a particular problem in the Passerelle, and I've said we'll work with the Education Minister to understand that. But this is an issue that goes beyond just those two groups of children. We saw last year in a case that was in court that 43 children have been groomed as part of a gang which actually nobody knew of prior to that. And then I think that indicates just how big a problem this is and how we possibly need to look at how we become, how we can become aware at an earlier stage. But of course, children will keep this, very reluctant to talk about this. I had somebody who contacted me very recently about a child of theirs that had been groomed into, criminal activity, a matter which I obviously passed on to the police so that they were aware of it. But, establishing who's being groomed and when it's happening is a difficult task, but it's not one that I don't think, that we can do. I think we can do more, and we need to look at how we do that.
Supplementary?
I wonder if the candidate would consider setting up a special piece of work to actually get to the heart of what's going on here. This kind of activity is actually affecting some of the most deprived areas of our community, and I think it needs a dedicated focus. Will he commit to doing some work on this more so, please?
Must be a very short answer. We're on 20 minutes.
Yes, it'll have to be a very short answer. Well, as I said with a previous question, I'm happy to do, to look at evidence and look at a review. Actually committing
that's
to...
long enough, surely?
Yes. Thank you.
That brings the time to an end, and I can confirm that the Conatap of St Peter has been selected for appointment as the Minister for Children and Families.
Sir, may I propose the adjournment?
Members content to adjourn now? Assembly stands adjourned until 2:15.